But I suppose kudos to those nurses. They really, really deserve a big applause. And I suppose that goes for all of us out here, that whenever we're confronted with a situation, let's do what we can when we can. I suppose that wraps up the show this afternoon, and it's been a pleasure. Let's do this some other time soon. The National Pulse is up next with Ashraf from myself and the team. Thank you so much, and a good afternoon. It's time for news.
Thank you, Beth. Top stories at 3. ANC appoints a restructuring team and SANEC on a quest to find HIV patients not on treatment. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good afternoon. The African National Congress has appointed a 67-person task team in KwaZulu-Natal. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has been addressing the media in Durban. This is part of the party's plans for reconfiguration after it dissolved the provincial leadership structures in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Jeff Radebe will serve as convener, and Mike Mabuya Kulu has been appointed as the coordinator. This follows the party's poor performance in last year's national election. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the deaths of initiates at initiation schools in the Eastern Cape is unacceptable. Ramaphosa was speaking at the annual opening of the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders in Parliament. He says he has instructed the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velenkosini Tlhabisa, to engage with various stakeholders, including traditional leaders, to address the problem.
As we affirm the role of traditional leadership, we need to restore the standing, the integrity, the dignity of our traditional cultural practices. The deaths and injuries that result from customary initiation practices, especially in the Eastern Cape, remain a matter of serious concern to all of us. The Minister of COGTA has convened a series of very focused engagements with our kings and selected Chapter 9 institutions, senior traditional leaders, headmen, and others.
The South African National AIDS Council says it will immediately mobilize their members across the country to find the 1.1 million people living with HIV but are not currently on treatment. This follows the launch of the new HIV treatment campaign aimed at getting the missing patients onto treatment by the end of the year. The campaign is part of the country's efforts to also get 95% of people diagnosed with HIV receiving and adhering to antiretroviral therapy to achieve viral suppression. SANEC CEO Thembisile Xulu.
SANEC has galvanized all the SANECs within all the provinces to make sure that everybody hits the ground running to find the 1.1. The targets have been broken down to meet not just the 2025 targets, but also the 2028 targets for the National Strategic Plan for South Africa by province, by district, and by facility, so that it's easier for them to find. Because the facilities know their patients. They know who is missing from care. And if they work with all the stakeholders, including the traditional leaders, the traditional healers, they'll be able to find them and bring them back onto care.
KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thami Ntuli has called for a review on where and how houses are built to try to prevent future weather-related tragedies. He visited areas in the south of Durban after several homes were hit by heavy rains and mudslides last week. 9 people died and about 50 homes destroyed across the province. Families affected by last week's devastating rains have been receiving government aid in the form of food parcels and building materials. Ntuli says residents need to adapt to the risk of more frequent and more severe storms due to climate change.
And a part of our call was that even the material that is produced now by the hardwares must be a material which is friendly to the current climate change. And we are hopeful, because I also heard that the municipality, the metro itself, has an understanding similar to us as provincial government, that the place in which people are built at and the kind of the material are the issues to be considered.
The annual tourism event Meetings Africa expects more business activities in Johannesburg and the surrounding townships. South Africa is hosting the 19th Meetings Africa conference at the Sandton Convention Centre. The event is organised by South African Tourism in partnership with the Gauteng Tourism Authority and Johannesburg Tourism. General Manager at the Gauteng Tourism Authority, Noni Kubeka, says the event will help sustain employment in the sector.
It means that there is job creation. Remember, when we do such events, it's not about showcasing only the province and what the province has to offer, but it's about job creation, making sure that our SMMEs down there in the township and the rural of the rural and the villages get businesses.
Recapping the top story, the African National Congress has appointed a 67-person task team in KwaZulu-Natal. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has been addressing the media in Durban. I am Mondela Bonifasi FM News headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Erasmus hails kickoff as warrior after Prop retires. Proteas Australia Champions Trophy clash postponed, called off rather, and Royal AM booted out of Nedbank Cup as NSL confirms revised fixture. More details at 3:30.
S3 and Lorna Maseko are adding flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. From reimagining traditional South African dishes to infusing global inspirations, Lorna's inventive recipes and seasoned cooking tips inspire creativity and will empower viewers to navigate the kitchen with savvy resourcefulness. Tune into Lorna's Pantry, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3. The whispers in the morning as I look in your...
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
Right, love is in the air, I suppose you know that, but there could be some great car insurance savings for you too. So get a quote, and if OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 rands in cash. And make that 1,500 rands if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you win. SMS OUT to 30754. OUT 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer in FSP, T's and C's online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So whether you're from Benoni or from Badplus or Bloemfontein or somewhere in between all of that, perhaps even Boksburg too, welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. And as you say hello, I say hi to you, because we all collectively have this feel of what is the nation feeling right now? What is the pulse of the nation tell us? So you're going to get a chance to engage with me. You know that. 086 000 2032. WhatsApp, text or voice note messages 0614 104 107. And you can tweet. Use the hashtag The National Pulse when you do that, and then tag on the Twitter or X platform SAFM Radio and tag me, Ashraf Garda. So welcome to the show. Lots to consider. We will talk about many things, including developments regarding the ANC in the KZN region. There's an update on the crypto industry report, which I sense that you may be very, very interested in. There's also developments regarding the former Joburg Mayor, Kabelo Gwamanda. Will chat to the Al Jamal leader, Hanif Hendricks, later on. But first things first, let's get to a significant issue regarding the Health Market Inquiry report. report, and that's what we touch on first. With me is the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Good to connect with you, Minister, as always. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners of SAFM and National Pulse.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. And of course, we're talking to you. We'll talk about the issue of the HIV treatment campaign just now. But first things first, we're talking to you because yesterday you delivered your own feedback regarding recommendations that initially were made in 2019 regarding specifically the private healthcare sector, which is very different to state healthcare, right? So, firstly, what are the key recommendations that have been made? And then we'll get your opinion on that.
Well, I think maybe let me start with the background, Ashraf, because it's very, very important. Then you'll understand the recommendations. The problem, Ashraf, is that private healthcare, right from its inception, has never been planned. There was no law in Parliament or any policy that was developed about private healthcare. It just evolved as some form of business on its own. But in 1967, the government then passed a law called the Medical Schemes Act, which established a body called the Council of Medical Scheme, which regulates what medical schemes can do and not do. But there's never been any act or any policy or any law passed to regulate what healthcare providers do. That means if you own a private practice, you are a specialist or a GP, or you own a physiotherapy or radiology unit, or you own a private hospital, what are your do's and don'ts, especially when it comes to tariffs? So over the years, over a period of 25 years, there's been an attempt to do that, but many attempts ended up in court and failing and all that. But the cost of private healthcare was going high. So the medical scheme industry put together a structure called REMS, Registered Medical Scheme Administrators, who brought the stakeholders together to sort of talk about pricing. If, Ashraf, you are sick and you need a knee replacement, or you just got pneumonia or whatever, how much do you expect to be charged? Because up to now, it differs. It depends where you go to, etc. So that is an untenable situation. So REMS brought them together. And of course, it was running relatively, if I must say well. But then there was collusion, which was discovered by the Competition Commission, whereby medical schemes brought administrators at the negotiating table to negotiate on their behalf. Now, medical scheme, by definition, is not a profit-making entity, but the administrators make profits. And the money they get paid is through the volume or through whatever is charged. Meaning what? When they sit on the negotiating table, they've got an incentive. Because if they are paid 10% of whatever you make, 10% of 1 million is different from 10% of 2 million, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
So they'll tend to negotiate the prices higher, so that medical schemes must pay them more while they are negotiating for them. So the Competition Commission abolished that. Unfortunately, there was a vacuum. Now, that was in 2004, 2006. So we went to the Competition Commission somewhere around 2012 and said prices of private healthcare is escalating because there's no more control, there's no more negotiation. The competition, we're asking them, can you reverse the decision we took in 2006? They refused and said, no, we're going to go back to days of collusion. What we'll rather do is to establish a market-wide inquiry by experts who must inquire the whole market about what's happening, so that we are not doing guesswork. And this is what we were announcing yesterday.
All right. So what are the key findings now that has come out of this inquiry, and therefore the recommendations?
The key findings are that the private healthcare sector is full of distortions. There's no regulations, and the prices are running away from the population. That's the main finding. And the fact that, because it's not regulated, the fact that even the licensing is done haphazardly through provincial governments, whereas before the 1993 interim constitution, it was done at the national level. But then the constitution gave it to provinces, and they were running it differently, just giving licenses willy-nilly without conditions, and they complained that those were given without conditions. They also found out that payment for health services via cash is one of the biggest problems that the country is faced with. There are lots of perverse incentives, and people are struggling to pay for that cash. And their recommendation is that we must try by every means to abolish that. It is called fee for service in professional terms. They said try everything in your power to make sure that there's no fee for service. They are also recommending that we need to establish a structure that is a 3A entity that will regulate the issues of funding, planning for private healthcare facilities and the licensing and all that. So it's quite a series of recommendations that's made.
Bottom line to all of this, my understanding is the initial thought still that private healthcare, whereas it provides a service, and as you said earlier, was running well, is in a sense unregulated largely, and therefore very expensive because of collusion can be allowed, and therefore prices can be raised, and that makes it very, very difficult. I mean, that would be the primary issue. But are you saying, therefore, that in terms of how loose the arrangement right now is, are we suggesting it's easier to set up a private healthcare business, to use your phrase early on, than to actually start open up a spaza shop in terms of regulation?
Let me get this clear. Did you say private healthcare is running well, or
no? I said initially. You said it was running well at that stage. I'm going back a good few years ago, as you had made the point earlier on, right? So, are we saying no matter how private healthcare is running now, meaning many people go to it because they don't prefer to go to state hospitals because of their own concerns about healthcare? You are saying that, however it's running, that it is unregulated and therefore open to price increases and collusion. So I'm suggesting that if it's still unregulated, are we suggesting it's easier to regulate a spaza shop than a private healthcare setup?
Yeah, no. Maybe I used the wrong term when I saying it running well, but I was talking maybe relatively in terms of pricing only. I'm not talking about any other thing.
Okay.
I'm just talking about there having been a forum where at least people who are working in private healthcare, the funders who have to pay money, and the providers who have to provide services and get paid money by the funders, at least they were having a forum where they could go ahead and complain and say, but you are overcharging me, but I'll be able to pay if you do this and that. So that's why I meant, so maybe I should not have used the word well, because it was not really very well, but at least there was a structure. Now, after
point made. So now we have this. Now you have these recommendations, right? My question is, what would be the end goal of the recommendation? Would it be that allow private healthcare, but at the same time ensure it has to be far more regulated than it is and far more affordable? Is that the recommendation?
Absolutely.
All right.
Firstly, it has to be regulated. There must be price-setting mechanisms. There must be benefits. Ashraf, if you go there to do a new operation, you must know what to expect. At the moment, you don't know. As I've said, it will all depends where you go. There must be some legal way in which prices are controlled. There must be a legal way in which licenses are issued. There must be a legal way in which the behavior in that private healthcare is gauged. The other thing which I forgot was that in healthcare, Ashraf, there ought to be outcomes. Like in education, there are metric results every year, or results
measured outcomes.
Yes, there must be outcomes. Now, public health care is forced to have outcomes which they report to Parliament. And when I say outcomes, I'm saying like you are treating HIV/AIDS patients. Is there an outcome of a drop in the HIV/AIDS incidence, or is it just going? You just treat him, but if you are talking about maternal mortality, women who die in pregnancy and childbirth, is there a graph that shows that we are working half enough?
All right.
I mean, hard enough to get it go down. Now, in private healthcare, it's not that. You go, they treat you very well. And of course, they've got very, very good hoteling services. In that, they've got good infrastructure. And so that's why people won't complain. But the Competition Commission was saying there's no clear outcome to the population.
Okay, so what then happens next with these recommendations, right? You, the Minister of Health, I mean, what happens with the recommendations? You've got it, so what happens next?
No, we are implementing them. And when you introduced the topic, you said the recommendation was passed in 2019. That's true. It was September 2019. I have just left the Department of Health about 3 months previously. Because I'm saying because I'm the one who went to the Competition Commission, and it's because I was pushing that they had this market inquiry, which was chaired by Chief Justice Mmobo. So immediately they put this, the Department of Health were studying them to start seeing how to implement. COVID struck immediately. 5 months later, there was COVID, and nobody could really be talking about cost of private health care and regulation when there was COVID. So the department stopped altogether. Now, after COVID, obviously, there were many other issues which they have to deal with, but then we restarted and say, now COVID is gone, we are settled, let's think back about the market inquiry. We had to start the process. The other thing which I forgot was that in one of the regulations some years back, the department lost in court on procedural ground that whatever they were proposing, they tried to implement it before being taken to the National Health Council for consultation. Now we had to go to the National Health Council.
Okay. I'll tell you what you do, Minister Motsoaledi, just put that on hold for the moment, because I want to ask you more about that, as well as the new HIV action campaign that you've just launched. We'll talk about that right after this.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned, and almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
Switching to OUTsurance has definitely saved me money, 2,107 rands per month. I would recommend OUTsurance to all business owners because they will definitely save money. With OUTsurance, you always get something out.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer FSP. T's and C's online.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime is 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Right, 52-year-old Sipho loves OUTsurance Essential. Why? Well, because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. Now, for his 2007 Hyundai Tucson, he only pays 314 Rand a month. With OUTsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Now, top this up with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns as well. Get saving with OUTsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187. You got that, CAR 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we're back with the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. We've got about 2 minutes to go, Minister, so let me just put this to you quickly. What then, in terms of what you've said now, what would be the end goal? That means ultimately, in terms of, you speak about targets, the end goal to private health care would look like what, according to the recommendations?
Well, it must be regulated firstly. There must be a package of benefits. There must be tariffs. There must be clear licensing procedures. The manner in which they operate must clearly be regulated so that people can know what to expect and what not to expect, which is not the case now.
Right, and it may be early days now, but would this be, setting it up for whatever may happen around NHI? Of
course, because NHI in the Act, if you read it, all these recommendations are already there, but in a permanent way. Remember that the recommendations of the Health Market Inquiry were done while NHI Act is still going through Parliament. So they did not have the advantage of looking what NHI says. So we're actually trying to marry them.
And what role would you play in ensuring implementation?
Well, I'm leading the implementation because we are working with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition together to implement. Because remember, the Competition Commission is under them. So we are leading that implementation.
Okay.
We have got to implement it. It's our job.
All right. Lastly, tell me about the HIV Action Campaign that was launched earlier today.
Yes, I'm still here at Chris Hari Baragwanath Hospital and Lillian Goy Health Center. We have just launched it. We are launching a campaign whereby we are going all out in the country to look for 1.1 million people who are HIV positive but who are not on treatment. We already know them because some of them did start treatment. Even those who did not start treatment, they've tested and we know they are positive, but they are not on treatment. And so we are looking for them. And how do we arrive at the figure of 1.1 million? Is because the guiding frame to bring an end to HIV and AIDS is what is called 95-95-95 by UNAIDS, whereby 95% of the people in a particular setting must know their HIV status. And those who are positive, 95% of them must go on ARVs. And those who are on ARVs, 95% of them must get virally suppressed, which means they must not have a capacity to transmit the virus to the next person. When that happened, we believe the virus is no longer spreading. We have brought down HIV/AIDS. We have not eradicated it, but at least we have eliminated it as a public health threat.
Okay, and lastly, on that, how attainable is it, the 95-95-95?
Oh, it's attainable. We are already at 96, 79, 94. So our biggest problem is the middle 95. We are still at 79. And once we get this 1.1 million people, and we must reach them by November, we'll have been at 95. So it's very much attainable. The first 95 we have achieved. The second 95 we are short of 1%. And the middle 95 is the one that is problematic.
Okay.
We are launching this campaign to deal with that one.
All right, let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time and best wishes in that campaign. Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, the Minister of Health, here on the National Pulse.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's move on to another. Well, you certainly would have views on this. I have no doubt about it, right? But let's talk about South Africa's borders. Now, with me is Meme Mogotsi, who's the Deputy Assistant Commissioner and the spokesperson for the Border Management Authority. Appreciate your time, Meme. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me, Ashfat.
Thank you. Now, we're talking to you because I understand 2 immigration specialists were arrested and once again, it puts into question the whole issue about, very topical, porous borders and the role that, again, individuals play in ensuring that people from other countries can cross the borders. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, today we had to facilitate, working with the Hawks, the processing of 2 immigration specialists who were arrested yesterday evening. This was as part of an ongoing investigation linked to a case of another official who was arrested last year for fraud and corruption. So in this case, it's a good thing that, we are cleaning out the system, Ashka, and ensuring that, the integrity of South Africa's borders is upheld, and we will continue to do so to demonstrate our zero tolerance stance against corruption, even within our officials.
Okay. And you mentioned a woman arrested a few months ago and now 2 further, immigration specialists, right? How significant is that? Because these point to individuals as opposed to, where our focus often is on the numbers of people trying to cross the border. You're talking about people living within South Africa and expect professionals in many ways who are the ones who are aiding and abetting others effectively jumping the border illegally.
This is very significant in our demonstration that, we will not tolerate any misconduct and will not allow anyone to undermine the rule of law and the security of the country. And we also want to reaffirm our position to the public that we are taking decisive action against anyone who is found to be unethical and practicing illegal activities, even within our midst. So this is a very good thing that is happening, and with the warning to others who are continuing to be doing the illegal activities to say, we will come after you. You will also be behind bars, and we will show you.
Can I put it to you that, in fact, whereas we understand how people from other countries may want to get to South Africa with or without documentation on the one hand, right, but that in the business of allowing people to enter the country illegally is in fact a serious business and must be treated as such, meaning it's not an individual on their own. There's a cartel of sorts that actually mobilizes and ensures that these type of things actually do happen.
Yes, definitely. And we have been receiving, anonymous tip-offs from the campaign that we launched. We launched the anti-corruption line that we unveiled last year at Libombo. So we are taking every information that we get very seriously, because this is about the security of the country. And we must demonstrate that as a BMA, we are serious about the business. Last year, there was an expose done highlighting suspicious activities on illegal processing of travelers. Although these two arrests are not related to the expose that was done, but we want to just, demonstrate that any information that comes to us and any tip-off that we receive, we will continue curbing corruption within our system.
Okay, clear message to people, but very much those who are involved in the business of illegal border crossings. Meme Mokhotsi, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner and spokesperson for the Border Management Authority, appreciate you giving off your time. Right, let's get comment from you. I know you will. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the African National Congress has appointed a 67-person task team in KwaZulu-Natal. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has been addressing the media in Durban. KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thami Ntuli has called for a review on where and how houses are built to try to prevent future weather-related tragedies. He visited areas in the south of Durban after several homes were hit by heavy rains and mudslides last week. And Minister of Electricity and Energy Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa says South Africa is continuing to engage with the United States in efforts to work towards a common purpose on energy security. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, an update with regards to the Gautrain bus services, which has been suspended, so commuters will need to make use of alternative transport. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gululis interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound, a stationary vehicle before the M41 gateway exit. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before Mgeni Road, and the M7 westbound in Pinetown has a crash reported before the N3 highway. In Cape Town, the M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. Marine Drive northbound in Tableview is queuing at Dolphin Beach Hotel, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, so Tumi, I should say, give us an update on South Africa versus Australia. How well are we doing?
Well, unfortunately, play was abandoned between the South Africans and Australia in the Champions Trophy because of rain. This means that points have been split, and the Proteas are top of Group B because of a better run rate. South Africa is scheduled to face England on Saturday in what could be a must-win clash in Karachi in their final match before their playoffs. Meanwhile, India and New Zealand have qualified for the semi-finals from Group A, while title holders Pakistan and Bangladesh have crashed out of the tournament. Then Proteas woman coach Mandla Mashimbi says that the team responded very well in their first camp before the 2025 ICC Women's 50 Over World Cup. The nation's team's week-long camp was recently held at the Center of Excellence in Tshwane, and Mashimbi says that they shared the much-needed tools to sharpen the players' skills as they look ahead to compete in the World Cup in October.
No, I thought it was a successful exercise. I think the girls responded really, really well to the task at hand. And I think, when we came in, Maybe let me put it this way. I think the way they went out of the camp was definitely different to how they walked in. Obviously, a lot of them were a little bit curious as to how things are going to go. New coach, new way of doing things. And obviously, the rain didn't help from a skills point of view. But I think that also has given us an opportunity to really engage with one another and connect with one another. And then obviously, the purpose of the camp was educational and skill. And I think from an educational point of view, we got what we're looking for. From a skill point of view, we're giving them the tools that they need, and it's for them to now take it forward for the next few months and make sure that they work on those tools or they use those tools to upskill themselves.
Well, shifting our focus to rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has hailed prop Steven Kishoff as a warrior and a fine ambassador of what the Springboks stand for. This comes after Kishoff was had announced his forced retirement after suffering a serious neck injury. The 33-year-old sustained the injury back in September last year while playing in a Currie Cup match for Western Province, and also revealed that he was 2 millimeters away from death. In a statement, Kishoff says that after an extensive rehabilitation process, he was advised by a specialist neurosurgeon that there would be a high risk of another injury should he continue playing. Now, Kishoff's career began with Stormers as an 18-year-old. The front rower made his debut for the club back in 2011 before collecting his first international cap 5 years later. He won 2 World Cups with the Springboks, which is very sad, Ashraf. I mean, it's always sad when you hear about athletes that are forced to retire because of injury, and I can't help just thinking about some other athletes, regardless of which sport, that have been forced to retire.
Can you think of names? I'm battling to think of. I mean, you mentioned Kishoff now, I understand that, but generally?
I mean, just thinking of football, Brilliant Kutswayo.
Okay,
And Ryan Mason, I think, at one stage, and also Wiseman Meiwa from Kaizer Chiefs.
Okay, so those are three footballers. And the same will apply to others. I think for me, I mean, obviously retirement is terrible. And the other next worst thing, besides retirement because of injury, is a player, doesn't matter which sport, that doesn't get to play in a major final because they're injured. If you remember, Siya Kolisi almost didn't make that one World Cup, right? I mean, so, you get that way. They don't make the World Cup, or they make it, and their country or club makes a final, for example, and they miss out on that game. It's like a rain washout in cricket. It just leaves you with a sour taste.
Yeah, really. Definitely. Yeah. Well, moving on to football, Banyana currently leading 1-0 30 minutes into the match against Lesotho in their international friendly this afternoon. Sibongile Ntwane scored a goal in the 4th minute to put South Africa in the lead, and we'll definitely keep you up to date with that international friendly. Banyana are using this one to prepare themselves for the 2025 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, even though Coach Desiree Ellis is saying that she is assessing the young players to see which ones will raise their hands to be chosen to be in the senior national team when the WAFCON comes around. Meanwhile, Royal AM Football Club has been officially withdrawn from the 2025 Nedbank Cup. This was after a decision by the National Soccer League Executive Committee. The ruling was made after the committee convened yesterday to review further representations from Royal AM's management and the appointment curator overseeing the club. According to an official statement, the decision was reached in agreement with Royal AM and the curator, with time constraints cited as primary reason for their exit from the tournament. As a result of Royal AM's withdrawal, the Nedbank Cup fixture schedule has been revised, and the match initially affected fixture number 21 will now see Milford FC face Kukune United on the 2nd of March at 3 p.m. and the clash is set to be played at Princess Makoko Stadium. Elsewhere, Galatasaray say that they intend to bring criminal proceedings over racist statements made by Fenerbahce head coach Jose Mourinho towards Turkish people. The Super League title rivals played to a goalless draw after tensions had risen over the referee appointment before the match was Slovenian official Salvo Vincic drafted in by the Turkish Football Federation. Mourinho had welcomed the decision to use the referee who officiated last season's Champions League final following several recent controversies in Turkish football. And then after the game, Mourinho made comments about the behavior of the Galatasaray bench, saying
they were jumping like monkeys following an early challenge. Very strange. Then finally in tennis, world number 9, Andrei Rublev says that conversations with twice Grand Slam champion Marat Safin have helped him deal with mental struggles and that he was now playing without stress or anxiety for the first time in years. Rublev has struggled to keep his emotions in check at times during matches, and his outbursts have overshadowed his game. But the 27-year-old showed his best side with a run to the Doha title last week, and Rublev now is back in Dubai this week, where he was defaulted into a match last season after a Russian-speaking official said that he uttered he was screaming at a line judge. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay. I tell you what I want to ask you, not now, for the next hour. Did you see the Jamie Carragher comments about, in this case, Mohamed Salah in particular, and what you thought about the CAF? But hold that AFCON, yeah. Hold it for the next hour. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Get the new Samsung Galaxy A16 on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for 379 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 29 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Fit 3. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, we'll take your calls in a few minutes' time, so keep them coming. If you wish to call in and you tell me what moves the national pulse today. Is it a conversation with Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi? Is it the issue about the border management issues and the 2 immigration experts who've been arrested, or something else perhaps that I haven't quite touched on right now? Well, you can call in to 086 000 2032, and then WhatsApp, you've got a text or a voice note option, 0614 104 107, and you can tweet, tag SFM Radio and tag me, Ashraf Garda. Right, let's talk about business, I suppose, in many ways. The state of the crypto industry. And there's the state of the crypto industry report, and some really interesting things have come through, right? So with me is Jared Jansen, who's the Senior Business Development Manager for Africa at Sam Sub, right? Jared, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Hey, good afternoon, Temba. Likewise, man. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. Well, you can call me Ashraf, and I'm sure we'll not be confused after all of that. Yeah, it's fine. Listen,
Ashraf, nice to meet you, man.
So let's start with this, right? Interesting. I mean, I got a message the other day from Stafford Marcy, and you would know him as someone who plays in the crypto space, right? Which gets me thinking right now. Just we can't assume, however, everybody knows what crypto is. So let's start with that, right? What is cryptocurrency?
Well, I mean, what is cryptocurrency? I mean, it's pretty much just like regular currency, except for it's on the blockchain. So on the internet, it's a technology, right? It's as real as normal currency. The only difference is that you can't really touch it. So like in the physical.
Okay. So when you can't touch it, but you can trade off it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it is currency as you would see it, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you take a look at a lot of places around the world nowadays, and especially in South Africa, you're actually able to go and purchase goods, like real goods, utilizing cryptocurrency, right? Because it's not like it's just money that's getting pulled or created out of the thin air. People are actually utilizing their fiat currency, so their regular currency, to purchase cryptocurrency, and then, of course, utilizing that cryptocurrency to be able to trade, to be able to purchase online products or actual physical products at retail stores. Across South Africa at the moment, you'll find that there's a lot of retail stores, especially in the luxury goods sector, actually accepting payments in crypto. And I believe Pick n Pay and Checkers and all of them have also been recently sort of playing around with the idea of accepting crypto payments. And there's more to follow, of course, going forward into the future.
All right. Well, that's why this conversation is so important. So yours, the crypto industry report, gives us an oversight into the entire industry. What are the findings from that report?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things, and of course, time is a bit limited, so I'll just try and narrow it down a little bit. But in general, the report shows that the crypto industry is at a tipping point. In 2024, we witnessed a surge in platform traffic, up 20% during major events like the Bitcoin rallies and the re-election of President Trump, which marked a year of onboarding for crypto exchanges. Despite a 40% increase in fraud, innovation is, of course, driving change. Verification times, of course, when it comes to the crypto space, it's getting highly regulated, and verification is of utmost importance. And what we found is that verification times have improved by 46%, and our global onboarding success rates now stand at 93.39%. This report not only highlights emerging challenges, but also outlines clear paths for growth and compliance in 2025. Mm-hmm. Now, if you wouldn't mind me just adding a little bit to this for Africa specifically,
okay.
I just want to reflect on some of the trends with some specific highlights. So in Africa, such as South Africa, Algeria, Ghana, and Morocco, they were among the top 10 African countries in terms of like speeds of verification with times of 20 seconds or less and all of that type of stuff. And then, of course, with documents comes a lot of fraud. And I don't want to get into too much of the details about this, but I'm happy to if you want me to. But one thing that we've done at SumSub is we've released or introduced our revolutionary document-free identity verification solution, which has, of course, already gained an adoption of like 19% of surveyed companies worldwide, with Africa leading the way at 27%, showcasing the region's openness to innovative solutions. Now, on the fraud side, when it comes to the crypto space specifically, Nigeria has actually recorded the highest rate of fraud across the crypto sector at 8.3%, and this is globally. And then, of course, showed a 75% average pass rate, which is the lowest among its regional African peers. On the other hand, of course, we have Ghana, Namibia, Kenya, Algeria, Morocco, Uganda, South Africa, and Tunisia, all showing pass rates over 90%, with Tanzania and Nigeria, of course, dipping a little bit lower. Yeah.
Okay. So amongst the things, let's talk about the issue of the fraud. So how do you combat against crypto fraud?
So the thing is, I will talk about fraud in general first, before I talk about the combating. So, of course, as mentioned before, fraud is one of the biggest issues today, up 48% globally, with document forgery accounting for over 31% of all fraud cases. And this ties into what I mentioned about Nigeria actually leading this with 8.3% fraud rate. Mm-hmm. And this surge obviously emphasizes the need for crypto platforms to adopt AI-powered detection, biometric checks, and continuous monitoring. And of course, such tools are really essential to combat sophisticated fraud, safeguard user assets, and of course, maintain trust in a rapidly evolving market.
What I'm going to ask you to maybe share the links to the report itself. Maybe just tag SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda, on the X platform or any other social media platform. That's the one thing. But the other thing is, can you direct us to maybe a website?
Yeah, most definitely, of course. So people can, the audience is able to find this report on our website. The general link is sumsub.com, which is SUMSUB.com. But if you're looking for the crypto report specifically, it would be exactly the same thing, sumsub.com/crypto-industry-report.
Okay.
And that's where we go into great detail on a global scale, including Africa, about all the different types of fraud, the fraud rates, and absolutely everything there.
All right, that's great. But do tag us as well. And just that last thing, just very short answer. What then overall is the appeal of cryptocurrency? Meaning, what is the motivation and the appeal for someone who's got hard cash currency or even lying in the bank to effectively use that to accumulate crypto and then trade off that? What's the appeal?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a really good question. I'm assuming that it would actually change between people, right? But the thing is, the nice thing about crypto is that, first of all, it's decentralized. You know, unlike fiat currencies controlled by central banks or governments, cryptocurrencies operate on decentralized networks, which gives users more control over their funds. And then, of course, you know, and I'm just going to put it out there, much faster and cheaper transactions.
Okay.
Particularly for cross-border payments. You know, crypto transactions can be processed rapidly and offer at much lower fees compared to traditional banking systems.
Well, we could have another whole chat about crypto. Let's leave it at that, Jared. We could have another conversation about that. Jared Jansen, Senior Business Development Manager for Africa at SumSub, talking about cryptocurrencies and that crypto industry report. Perhaps Google it as well if you want to know more about that. Right, let's get to you. I want to feel your pulse after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My baby says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. starts 9 February only on S3.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's hear from you. I mean, you know what are the big issues that moves the National Pulse. I need to hear it from you. Wonga in Matatiele. Good. Let's get talking. Hi, Wonga.
Hi, Ashraf, and hi to SFM listeners. You know, Ashraf, there's a big corruption that is going on in Alfred in the district municipality here in the Eastern Cape. There's a company that was given a consulting job in 2018. Then it has been doing that job. But come 2024, a certain company was paid same amount of money of what was that company that was out. All in all, an extra amount of 54 million has been paid to this particular second company without doing a single job. So they have copied all the details of the other company as if it was going to execute the water reticulation scheme in Bizana for what 21, 22, and 23. But it has never done a thing except that it has been paid. Continuously it has been paid. There are letters from the MEC. Maybe you should call in MEC Williams as well as Minister Sabiso to come on the radio. Maybe you can include me too.
Okay.
So that I can ask them about this. When are they acting? Why are they making... People are not having water in Alfred Nzo.
All right. I'll tell you what we do. Let's do exactly that. Just leave your details with Keys when you're done, right? And then between Keys and Temba, they'll try and sort it out and see if we can get them on board. And of course, hopefully you can raise those issues too. Wonga, can you do that, right? Okay.
I'll appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Thanks for that, Wonga. Right, Mike in Newlands, go for it.
So, Ashraf, there was a time when cabinet ministers used to love taking questions from listeners. Now they run scared. I want to just ask the Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. The question I wanted to ask him when I phoned through was, look, the ANC can't run anything. He can't point to me anything that the ANC can run. Why would he want to take a medical fund that is privately funded? It's got nothing to do with him. It's got nothing to do with the ANC. It's my money. It's my fund that I pay into, and he wants to get involved in my fund. And the question I would put to him is, why? What's it got to do with you whether I pay 1,000 rand for a tablet or 5 rand? It is my choice to do that. And it just fascinates me that nobody challenges him, Ashraf. Not that this is self-criticism, but I mean, we've got like 788 black babies died in Tembisa Hospital in over 3 years. Now, I want to ask the question, who would want to go to a government hospital? Surely the minister must show us one hospital that he can run where people don't die, that can get proper health care, and then come back and say, you know what, guys, I can do a really good job. Let me show the medical aid hospitals what I can do.
Okay, Mike, your point is made. I think the context of today was just those recommendations made. I mean, the broader issue of NHI has been raised like 20 times before and probably will be raised down the line as well. But here's a thought just for you. I think if you asked most people in South Africa right now that if they could afford it, would they go to a private hospital or to a public hospital? I have no doubt, anecdotally, they would want to go to a private hospital. On the other hand, if you ask those that spend money at private hospitals whether there could be another solution so they don't have to spend money they can't afford to spend to get the same type of healthcare or similar, would they take that? I think they would do so as well. Maybe between those extremes lies the reality. Mike in Newlands, thanks for that, right? Okay, let's get to further thoughts and more comments about politicians.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, this politician takes us for fools, I was listening to Panyaza when he said they put systems in place to close potholes within 7 hours or 24 hours, whatever, 72 hours. I don't know when he has been in Joburg. I don't think he has been in Joburg for the past 30 years. Which pothole is he going to look for? Because Johannesburg itself is a pothole. Roads are built on potholes in Johannesburg. Which ones are they going to fix there?
All right.
He must be joking, Panyaza. He was good in education there, but not this time.
Okay, your point. Thanks for that. Your point is taken. I wonder if others concur with you. There's further comments about the Minister of Health.
Hi, Ashraf. Minister Aaron Motsoaledi. It's one minister who has been consistent from all the ministries that he has been heading, including when he was still the MEC in Limpopo. It's one man who is very good in doing what he does. And I'm very much happy that they are looking into the issues of medical aid and NHI, which in my view is going to benefit a lot of South Africans, because even those of us who are having medical aids, sometimes we are expected to pay exorbitant extra amount for having done certain procedures. Thank you very much.
Well, look, I mean, I think, we'll go back to the point from Mike from Newlands. It also can't be an either or. There are problems in medical aids and there are problems in state hospitals. The problem is medical aids, even now, they are not unaffordable, but state-run hospitals they're just in an unhealthy state. That's true.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. With regards to the conversation you had with Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, I'm of the opinion that, is an individual that actually, and we can actually hear from how he's explaining, he knows the work, and he obviously has a qualification in the healthcare sector. However, I'm also of the opinion that, it was not necessary for him to be Minister of Home Affairs, because this individual knows what he's saying. He actually is spot on and everything is saying. That's just my opinion. Daniel here in Bryanston.
Okay, many people believe he's spot on. Omar in Pretoria, go for it.
Hello, Ashraf. Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm happy that Minister Motsoaledi educated most people, including myself, about how the private hospitals ripping us off. And I use private hospital for private medication myself, but I just feel, it's high time that we get to know exactly how they do their billings. And I think Minister Motsoaledi did exactly that, and then we are very happy about it. And maybe going forward, then they will accommodate even those people who cannot afford to use private hospitals.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
But you see, that last part is, I'd like that, but the reality is, once they accommodate people that can't afford it, and they don't have an income, and they don't run the business, then basically you've got NHI or you've got a state hospital, which makes it less appealing for a private hospital to be a private hospital, isn't it? Right, let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Gwamanda not off the hook yet, and ANC appoints a restructuring team for SAFM News. I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. The National Prosecuting Authority says criminal proceedings will be reinstituted against former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda once further investigations have been concluded. The NPA says more complainants have come forward. The Protea Magistrate Court in Soweto today provisionally withdrew the case against Gwamanda and his co-accused as the state failed to present the charge sheet. Gwamanda and Mduduzi Zondo are accused of defrauding Soweto residents in an alleged funeral policy scam. NPA spokesperson Pindim Jonondwane.
The NPA took a decision to provisionally withdraw fraud charges against Kabelo Gwamanda and Mduduzi Zondo. The decision is premised on the emergence of additional complainants, which then necessitated further investigations that were not initially anticipated at the inception of the case. Upon finalization of these investigations, the case will be re-enrolled.
The African National Congress has appointed a 67-person task team in KwaZulu-Natal. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has been addressing the media in Durban. This is part of the party's plans for reconfiguration after it dissolved the provincial leadership structures in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. This follows the party's poor performance in last year's national elections. Mbalula has confirmed the names of the task team members.
That is Noma Kuku Smelani. She's the fundraiser in the task team. That is Musa Dube is the deputy coordinator. Comrade Mike Mabuyakulu is the coordinator of the task team. Uput Jeff Khatebe is the convener of the task team. The first provincial convener is Umama Weziwetusi, which I think you are quite familiar with her. Mchebeke Utuma is the second provincial convener.
KwaZulu-Natal Premier Tami Ntuli has called for a review on where and how houses are built to try to prevent future weather-related tragedies. He visited areas in the south of Durban after several homes were hit by heavy rains and mudslides last week. 9 people died and about 50 homes destroyed across the province. Families affected by last week's devastating rains have been receiving government aid in the form of food parcels and building materials. Ntuli says residents need to adapt to the risk of more frequent and more severe storms due to climate change.
And a part of our call was that even the material that is produced now by the hardwares must be a material which is friendly to the current climate change. And we are hopeful, because I also heard that the municipality, the metro itself, has an understanding similar to us as provincial government, that the place in which people are built at and the kind of the material are the issues to be considered.
Various religious groups and the Commission for Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Rights say cremation should not be forced on families. This comes after the city of Johannesburg announced that it was running out of burial space. The Metro has encouraged residents to opt for cremation or consider reburials. It says West Park Cemetery will be full by May this year. The Commission has cautioned the Metro, saying it will look into bylaws to ensure that residents' cultural rights are not violated. Azola Manjandi is the city's cemetery manager.
We have released the statement that the graveyard is getting to full capacity in the next 4 months. We do have cremation as an option, and we see now across denominations people are starting to cremate. We are encouraging people to cremate. It's a safe and sustainable way, and it's going to serve space for the future generations. We still have 3 more cemeteries: Waterfall, Olifantsvlei and Diepsloot, which can carry us for the next 30 years. And also we have reopens and reburials. As much as West Park is going to get to full capacity, but we will still continue with reopens and reburials, above ground burials.
Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says South Africa is continuing to engage with the United States in efforts to work towards a common purpose on energy security. He hosted a session on the country's G20 Energy Transition Work Group in Johannesburg. He says South Africa plans to use G20 to position the country as a key knowledge hub in areas of clean energy, just transition and sustainable development in Africa. The U.S.'s new administration has pulled out of the Paris Agreement, a move Ramokgopa says is likely to hamper momentum towards the just energy transition.
We've got a new administration in the U.S. They've got their own interpretation in relation to what could be considered just, what are some of the underpinning elements of this transition. I'm confident that we should be in a position to find each other. We will invest a lot of time in ensuring that there's a common understanding between the Troika so that we are able to drive the conversations together. The first of the technical working streams is on Thursday, Friday, and all I know is that the U.S. has confirmed will be represented at the level of a DG.
Recapping the top story, the National Prosecuting Authority says criminal proceedings will be reinstituted against former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda once further investigations have been concluded. I am Mondela for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, Banyana lead 2-0 against Lesotho into half-time, and Pakistan bemoans death of cricket after poor showing in the Champions Trophy. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The R59 northbound in Alberton is queuing towards Klip River Drive exit, and Colette Drive in Melrose has a crash reported at the M1 highway. In KZN, the N3 eastbound tonight will be closed between Pavilion Mall and Spaghetti Junction from 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. on Wednesday. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before the M41 Gateway exit, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing on the link to the M3 South at Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
It's 2025, aka 2020 Thrive. And from January to December, we're managing our expenses better, even in the month of love. Whatever personal expenses or aspirations you have, make them happen now with a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand and enjoy our best available interest rate.
Search Nedbank personal loans and show your goals some love. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so on a day where there's been so many other developments besides the issues of the latest HIV AIDS campaign to get to over 1 million extra people. There's also been a development regarding that has an impact really by and large with what happened in the city of Joburg, because I'm talking about the former Joburg mayor, that's Kabelo Gwamanda. Now you may remember he had charges against him for fraud, besides him another person too, around a funeral service that he was involved in around 2011, right? Now we now know that the state has dropped all charges against the former mayor, and question is why and what are the implications. But in this case, what is the Al Jamaa party, which is a party that Kabelo Gwamanda belongs to? What do they feel about it? With me is Hanif Hendricks, the leader of the Al Jamaa party. Hanif, appreciate your time and thanks for, in fact, we're going to connect with the guest in just a second or two. All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's get to some of the voice notes before we connect with the guest in just a moment, right? Here's further comments about the minister.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Can you ask the minister regarding the medical aids? During COVID, it just came up to me now. During COVID, or after COVID, there was a surplus in the medical aid schemes. They had lots of money because nobody used the hospitals or went to hospitals or for treatment or anything like that because they had so much money. What happened to all that money? There was no relief for the members. Were there any? I doubt there were any. So what happened to all those billions of rands that they accumulated? Gareth Cape.
I'll tell you what, I don't know, but here's a question, and I'm really just fishing on this question, right? That, you know, a lot of the medical aids rely on the doctors, the specialists, to admit their own patients or clients to those hospitals wherein they work, right? And I'm talking about, you know, specialists in various fields. And my understanding around that period, there was this complete drop-off of people visiting GPs on the one hand, and then specialists, which actually meant less people being admitted, accepting for those who were admitted in big numbers. And the hospitals were flooded, in fact, regarding people who actually were COVID positive. So on the one hand, flooded on that side, but in terms of other specialized treatment, there was a massive, massive drop-off on that. If anybody else knows more and the implications thereof, to your point about potentially what that means regarding revenues, is another story completely, right? Okay, we're just for now battling to connect with Hanif Hendricks from the Al Jamaa party. What we'll do is we're going to find out more about developments that have taken place regarding the ANC in the KZN region after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, you know, it's been a busy time for the African National Congress in re-looking at how the KwaZulu-Natal region is structured, and the same with the Gauteng region. Both regions, in fact, as you know, had massive drop-offs in that last election, right? Now we know that there's been changes and a reconfiguring of the provincial leadership of KwaZulu-Natal. That was confirmed today by the ANC Secretary General. Let's get more about it with Zakhele Ndlovu, who's a political analyst. Appreciate your time, Zakhele. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon, and also good afternoon to listeners.
Thank you. I guess you've had a chance to look at some of the names that make up now what is called the top six in KwaZulu-Natal in particular, right? What sticks out for you there?
Well, so they brought back Jeff Hadebe as the convener, and then the two deputy conveners. She's a former MEC, one of the longest serving MECs in KZN. And then they also brought back Sponiso Duma, who was the chairperson. And then Mike Mabuya Kulu as the coordinator, and former Premier Namusa Dube as Mabuya Kulu's deputy. So I think what sticks out for me here is that, so they're bringing in all these old politicians because I guess they think they have a lot of experience, and so they're going to make a difference. But I think the bottom line here, I think what the ANC is missing, they are really missing the point here, is that I think they don't realize that voters are fed up with the MC promises. The ANC promised to create a better life for all. And that's why people are abandoning them, because they have failed to create a better life for all. Many South Africans are struggling, especially those who are voting for the ANC. So bringing back your Jeff Hadebe, your Mike Mabuya, I don't think it's going to change anything. I mean, these leaders were there when the ANC started losing support, started losing the confidence and trust of South African voters. So I don't see what they are bringing to the table in terms of changing how people view the ANC.
But help us understand this. I mean, they had to make some changes because they performed so dismally in that last election. I'm talking about KZN in particular. They had to respond, right? The question is, and you made the point, that just about every one of those top 6 had been in a position of leadership before and they moved on and they had to bring them back. So one is there a lesson to learn in terms of why they brought back, the former this and the former that? I think you mentioned it 3 times, right? That's the one thing. What does it say then about also the lack or the dearth of young leaders to take up leadership positions within the ANC KZN?
Yeah, so that is a very, very important point. So you want to groom leaders. You want to make sure that you produce good leaders. And then you pass debates, and those who have run the marathon, they pass the baton to those who are still fresh and energetic, who are going to bring in new ideas. So you are bringing in older people with the same old ideas. So what exactly are you fixing? I quite frankly, I think someone like Jeff Hadebe is very old, is out of touch. Most of the people who are going to be voting next year's local government elections, the 2000 people who cannot relate to the role that Jeff Hadebe played in the struggle. So again, you want to bring in new blood, people who are going to be able to relate to younger voters, who are going to galvanize those who have lost interest.
Is it not a case that, in spite of what you said, that at this point in time, what the ANC needs, besides the dearth of new blood, is they need some form of consolidation, and they obviously feel that this top 6 would give them the consolidation and stability they need now?
Yeah, so I think that the ANC over the years has been struggling to do something that's going to inspire the confidence of South African voters. So I think now they're just trying to change the faces, but without really changing what is really costing the ANC at the polls. So I think it's important for them to come up with something that's going to make South Africans say, you know what, we think we can trust the ANC again.
What then? So I take it you're not very confident about the ANC top 6 and the impact it will have in the next few months, and then even leading into the local government election.
Yeah, I mean, the leaders that they've introduced are definitely not going to help the ANC in next year's local government elections. They don't inspire any confidence. And definitely, I think that as the ANC prepares for its elective conference in 2027, it's important that they put leaders who are going to change the ANC as we know it, and make it a party that is relevant again, because clearly it has lost the confidence of those who supported it in the 90s.
And therefore, finally, what for you do you think is the biggest challenge facing the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal at this point in time?
Look, the biggest challenge, obviously, is to try and convince those who left the ANC. Remember that the ANC performed dismally in KZN, mainly because of the Zuma factor. So many people who would have voted for the ANC saw the MK party as the alternative. So you want to convince those people who left the ANC to join the MK to say, look, you made a huge mistake. Here is the future of South Africa. So if they can convince those who defected and joined the MK or voted for MK, I think they would have solved half of their problems.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Lots for the ANC, KZN, ANC National as well to consider, I would think. Zakhele Ndlovu, who is a political analyst, reflecting on that top 6, announced reconfigured top 6 now for the provincial leadership of the ANC in KZN. And the person who's the provincial convener is Jeff Hadebe. More thoughts, more comments, more from you as well on the biggest issues that moves the national pulse in a moment.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, let's go back to the story that we touched on earlier on regarding the position of the former mayor of Johannesburg, Kabelo Gwamanda. As you know, there were charges linked to him and others around issues of an alleged fraud regarding a funeral policy scam. Now, we understand now that from an investigative point of view, those charges were actually dropped today, and that means at this point in time, he's free to move on, or easy. With me is Hanif Hendricks, the leader of the party that the former mayor of Joburg belongs to. That's the Al Jamaa party. So, Hanif Hendricks, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting with us here on the National Pulse.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. What's your first reaction upon hearing that, in fact, charges were dropped?
Look, we have to respect the rule of law. The matter was on the radar for a few months. Eventually, when it came to the councillor's attention that the police would like him to come to the police station, he did so. He then presented himself. They took a statement. They didn't want to, lay any formal charges because there were no merits in the charges laid by Dr. Palasi, who was a former mayor of Joburg. She then took it to the Hawks, and one of the Hawks who used to work in the department, most senior officials took her to the province and they opened the case. So we knew it was a frivolous case. And I take strong exception, to the reference that you've made, what it could have been. But be that it is may, the Councillor Kabelo, all charges have been dropped. He's never been charged. Matter was postponed month after month. I flew down from Cape Town yesterday to prepare for this case today. I was quite happy that would be the outcome, and now the matter is closed.
Okay, what is that? What happens then to him in terms of his position within the Al Jamaa party?
Look, I appointed him, to the clearinghouse. In terms of the Government of National Unity, he is still a member of the clearinghouse. So the party, in the party, he occupies some of the most senior positions. He now has an opportunity to concentrate on his party work, and his mandate is to win the next 4 by-elections in the city of Joburg.
Okay, and that all comes up soon, right? What about, and I've heard a sound bite or a voice note from yourself in terms of a statement, and a lot of your blame or concern centered around the media. Explain that.
Yeah, look, we have been documenting, all the, the media campaign to get him to jail and orchestrate it. And, I just hope that the media has now,
is now going to change. We need a professional media in South Africa, and certainly with regard to his case to have been anything but unprofessional, calling the charges that the learned doctor, presented, different ways. The court itself, the police, the investigators couldn't even formulate a charge, but the media now wants to take the responsibilities of the police and the investigators.
But I mean, aren't they two separate issues?
We need the media to change their professions and become detectives.
But aren't they two separate issues? Meaning there were allegations, and the allegations were strong enough at the time for the person, in this case here, Kabelo Gwamanda, to actually go to court. So that is the first thing, right? Then it was, so the media has to...
I disagree completely with you.
No, just hear what I'm saying to you.
Any charges.
No, this is what I'm saying to you at that point.
To court, asked to present himself.
Right. So if you can just hear me, I'll just hear what I'm saying, then you can respond. I'm saying to you, I'm just saying to you at that point in time... No, just hear me for the moment. At that point in time, the allegations were strong enough for him to be actually brought to court in the first instance. Now we have a situation where we hear that he's been released because the charge sheet, there were irregularities. Now, at that point, the media had to report on that issue. What should the media do? I don't think the media convicted him. It's up to the courts to do that, and now the courts have withdrawn those charges for now.
There was nothing strong. Someone laid the charge. Any Dick, Tom and Harry, any idiot can lay a charge. The police must then call in the other person and ask them to make a statement, which he did. So the prosecutor didn't formulate the charge. There was no strong case.
Okay, we hear that. Now, what I'm asking you...
And then they used the normal tactics, postponing, and you can't. You appear in court, you don't know what you're appearing for. You never knew what you appeared, but the media, they started to play the role of a court and a prosecutor instead of doing their work as a journalist.
Okay, so are you saying that certain people...
Of the courts.
Okay, so are you saying certain people...
I don't know why journalists don't just join the police force. We need investigators.
All right, what I'll say, just to get clarity, are you saying that there were certain people in the media that actually convicted him through the media? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and even had documentaries and films and spend millions of rands, with these documentaries, because they were paid to do so by those who had ulterior motives. That's my opinion. I may be wrong.
And you have facts. But do you have facts to prove that? You're saying they were paid to do so, and then you're saying you may be wrong.
Well, the mere fact that the charges have been dropped. In fact, no charges have been dropped. There's no charges.
Okay. Now, what's interesting now, you may have heard that although the charges are dropped for now, and we covered it in our... All right, but just hear me out. There's been now comment that, in fact, those charges have been withdrawn, but there's been now additional complaints made against the same person, right? And therefore, the NPA reserves the right to reinstate those charges further down the line. That means he's off for now, but it's not a case of the story can't be revisited again. There are already additional complaints, and that's what they say.
Look, that is the case with all cases. You always have the right to, if there's no... At the moment, there's not a single charge. The only charges are charges formulated by your colleagues. And many of them, from many TV and radio stations, those are the only charges. There is no charge that he could address. So people come with stories, and, now the stories that they present, which they are coached to present, doesn't translate into a charge. And so far, there's been no charges. So you can't tell us the charges have been dropped and they can be reinstated.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that's been a statement made from the NPA.
But one charge that's on the table.
No, I'm not saying I have it.
And nonsense that people speak about.
Okay, I'm not saying I have it. The NPA are saying that new charges have been brought up and they may consider reinstating at a later stage. Not today or not tomorrow, at a later stage. What they are, I don't know, and you don't know either. All I'm saying is there's a chance that the case may be reinstated.
I am sure, that those who started this campaign, that they introduce people and people make statements, but those statements don't translate into charges. So it is frivolous, It's wasting court procedures, everyone's time, and your and my time as well.
So you believe, in conclusion, that he's been, effectively framed, and others have been paid in the media to do just that, and then the bottom line, would that be?
He hasn't been framed. If he's been framed, there should be a charge. There has been no charges, and nothing has been dropped.
Framed by those that have convicted him through the media, as you've said. And if that's the case, then what would be the motive?
The charges is the charges formulated by the media and the editors, and we have a strong position on Israel. The person that laid the main charge says that I stand with Israel. She's now with MK. She was a former mayor. Al-Jamaa removed her as a mayor because she didn't perform. So this is all politics, but there has been no charges. If there's no charges, then obviously there's nothing to drop.
Okay, well...
The only charges is what your colleagues have been formulating.
Well, look, I can't speak on behalf of other people, but the NPA said they will continue investigating the case as more victims have come forward and will come forward, and when they do, they may consider reinstating. So let's leave it at that. That's a story we'll probably visit or revisit sometime down the line. Hanif Hendricks, Al-Jamaa party leader, also in a position as the deputy minister in Parliament. So appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines. It's 4:30. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the National Prosecuting Authority says criminal proceedings will be reinstituted against former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda once further investigations have been concluded. The Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape has warned residents against the rising spate of theft of water meters in the metro. The local authority has called on residents to be vigilant against the scourge. The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced what he called the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Braamfontein is slow moving near Smith Street. The N1 southbound in Four Ways, queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The M1 northbound in Sandton has a crash before Marlborough Drive exit. And the N3 southbound in Bedfordview has a crash reported near Van Buren Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound is queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after Umgeni Road. The N2 northbound in Amanzimtoti is queuing on 20 Hill, and the M7 westbound in Pinetown queuing towards the N3 highway. In the Eastern Cape, the R61 has a road collapse incident reported between Tata and Port St. John's with stop-go controls at 2 locations. Trucks are prohibited. In the northwest, the R511 is closed between Piestekraal and the Limpopo provincial boundary due to flooding. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. Main Road outbound in Observatory is slow moving towards the N2 highway. And Stellenbosch Arterial Road eastbound in Kuils River slow moving at Nooiensfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
All right, Chumi, you got football, ladies football first up, right?
Yeah, I've got an update on that match going on in UJ at the UJ Stadium between South Africa and Lesotho. Banyana currently leading 2-0, all thanks to goals by Sibongile Ntwane, who scored the goal in the 4th minute, and Unathi Simaile, who scored deep into optional time for the first half. Then former ASFAR assistant coach Jamil Banwahi believes that Mamelodi Sundowns are capable of winning their second CAF Champions League title this season. Banwahi twice came up against the Brazilians in the group stage and was in charge when the Moroccan outfit held Sundowns to a 1-0 draw at Loftus last month. But he has since stepped down to explore a new challenge, and while he waits for his next job, the coach tipped Downs to go all the way as he unpacked the last 8 draw.
I still believe if you take the competition right now, if we play right now, I'm sure and I hardly believe that Sundowns is the best team today. Our balance is very, very confident, and they are playing very well, scoring a lot of goals, and have a better balance than before, for sure. And the only thing when you talk about Esperance Tunis and Al Ahly Egypt, it's not about football only. So all their behaviors, they're tricky, they do things, and it's not only about. If it's only about football, for sure, for me, the best team is Sundowns.
Still staying with football, Stellenbosch coach Steve Barker says that it will be important for his side to win their next 2 home matches against Magezi today and Polokwane City on Friday if they want to finish in the top 3. Stellies are currently 8th on the log with 24 points after 16 matches with 3 games in hand. And the coach believes that Stellies are well on track to achieve their targets for the season, having just reached the halfway mark.
We've made a final already in the MTN. We hopefully can go far in the Nedbank, and we've exceeded what we had set ourselves out in CAF, so we've got a big quarter-final coming up, and we would like to be finishing in that top sort of 3-4 positions, which shows consistency. So that's still our target and still our aim, and a lot of football still to be played and a lot of games to still win for us to achieve that.
Meanwhile, with his side rooted second from the bottom, Magezi coach Owen Gama says that they're not reading too much into the Royal AM saga, hoping it will help them survive automatic relegation. In cricket, there's a call for change in the Pakistan men's cricket team after the hosts crashed out of the Champions Trophy in the group stage. Barely a week into celebrating the return of a major tournament, the title holders lost their opening game to New Zealand by 60 runs in Karachi last week before Sunday's 6-wicket defeat to out-rivals India pushed them to the brink of an early exit. Former Pakistan pace legend Wasim Akram says that underperforming senior players need to be dropped and more investment in young and fearless cricketers. Then in rugby, New Zealand legend Maananu has returned to Toulon for the 3rd time in his career, on this occasion as a player coach. The 42-year-old will remain at the club until the end of the season as a medical joker. Now, Nanu had initially joined Toulon as a trainee coach just 2 weeks ago, but due to an injury crisis at the club, the 103-capped All Black international has been enticed into lacing up his playing boots, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing him on the field again.
Did you have a thought about the Jamie Carragher cap position?
I literally, when I heard that, I was just like, people just don't respect African football generally. There are people out there that don't see.
So what did he say that gets you to think that he didn't respect African football?
The comments that he said, I don't know how to. We'd need to play it. Let me play it for you guys.
Well, you play it in the next bulletin.
The next bulletin.
We need to hear it. Okay, perfect. So the comments, Jamie Carragher on CAF football, AFCON football, and the central person to all of that is Mohamed Salah, who could well be in the running for the Ballon d'Or. That's really the issue. We'll talk about that later on.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And with all those numbers is Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect. We'll get to local and global markets in a moment, but let's start with Curro, or Curro's yearly trading update, right?
Yes, Ashraf, and afternoon to you and to your listeners. Consumer spending remains constrained, and Curo has not benefited from moderating inflation and the gradual easing of interest rates over the last few months. Registered learners are now sitting at 72,109. Ashraf, that's 0.6% less compared to the end of November 2024. And the guys also identified impairments of almost 380 million, and that is relating to the lower yielding school assets. But they expect profits, as headline earnings per share, to go up by 17.5%. And Ashraf, appetite for risk-driven assets is also constrained by growing concerns over the cooling U.S. economy, as well as fears of more trade tariffs. Yesterday, Trump signaled that 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada will take effect from next week as planned. He's also stepping up pressure on allies to tighten restrictions on China's chip industry. Plus, is also moving to cap Beijing's investment in several American industries. And we saw moderating agency warning us that our budget that will be tabled on the 12th of March must not stray from the fiscal consolidation path. And one of the major GNU partners is rejecting the imposition of any new taxes and is calling for government to cut spending. Oil prices fall as Trump juggles a push for peace when it comes to Ukraine, a tariff war, and more sanctions when it comes to Iran. Brent crude is down 1.3% at $73 a barrel, and after hitting record highs, gold eased but still near recent peaks. As safe haven demand flows remain strong. Gold is down 0.3% at 2,942, but platinum is up 0.4%. And indeed, tariff fatigue is on us as markets continue to cruise with the JSEs up 0.6%, and our industrials are trying to recoup some of yesterday's losses. The rand is flat against the US dollar 18.36, 23.24 against the pound, and 19.26 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. We'll connect again tomorrow. Thanks for that, Makwe Masilela.
Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
Right, make a note of this now. 25-year-old Chanel loves OutSurance Essential. Why? Because it's low-cost insurance designed for older cars. Now, for her car, the 2012 Hyundai 10 lead 1.2. In fact, she only pays 458 Rand a month. With OutSurance Essential, you get up to 1 million liability cover as well, and that means if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered up to that 1 million rands. And even more value with a motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns as well. Get savings with OutSurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's get to some of the voice notes and your comments and the others' comments about the border too.
Ashraf, goeiemiddag man. Floris hier van die Weskaap. Ashraf, this just confirms what that general said about porous borders and why we have a Mickey Mouse army. Ashraf, I was in the army and I patrolled the borders. Let me tell you, there were strict rules when you were caught trying to allow someone in. And let me tell you, these people, they need to be, financial checks needs to be done on them. And these guys need to go through advanced screening every 3 months. All those border patrol management to see if they are really in it to serve the country or just for themselves financially. Have a good job, bye-bye.
Well, you see, the point with all of that is when you don't have the money, then compromises do take place, isn't it? Let's talk about money of a different sort in terms of governance. Now, President Ramaphosa opened the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders in Parliament today, and he made a series of comments about many things, reasserting the government's commitment to work with traditional leaders in the implementation of local development programs. Right now, we've got some clips that effectively would be the headline points that the president made. Firstly, speaking about the role of traditional leaders in the national discussion.
A space where the voices of all are heard and where they can come together to forge a shared vision and a common program of action. This conversation must involve people living in rural areas. It must reach every corner of the country, every town, every village, every farm, and every homestead. It will be important that traditional leaders and the communities that they lead participate in the national dialogue so that the process of the national dialogue produces a plan that reflects the interests and aspirations of everyone, not just the leaders or the elite. The medium-term development plan that we have adopted as the Government of National Unity intends to advance 3 strategic priorities. Firstly, to drive inclusive growth as well as job creation, a problem that has dogged our country for many, many years. Secondly, one of the key priorities is to reduce poverty and also to handle or reduce the high cost of living in our country. Thirdly, to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state.
All right, there's more from the president. He then spoke about this, annual issue of initiation deaths.
The Minister of COGTA has convened a series of very focused engagements with our kings and selected Chapter 9 institutions, senior traditional leaders, headmen, and others, and also the Eastern Cape Provincial Government. And these engagements should mobilize all the relevant stakeholders to work together to end initiation deaths. It is simply not acceptable and should not be acceptable to all of us that young men in the prime of their life who are sent for initiation do not come back to play their important role in the communities that they live in. Or they come back with serious injuries that make them not lead a full life. Government has gazetted Customary Initiation Act regulations for public comment. I have been advised that work towards the development of draft regulations on the fees charged in customary initiation schools is also at an advanced stage.
And there's more. The president then spurs the Amakhosi to harness the opportunities for the G20 summit will bring in, and speaking about the executive, saying the executive is working hard to reach consensus on that budget. Remember that one that's coming up in a week or two's time?
Of the G20 group of countries will take place on African soil for the first time. And we call on Amakhosi to harness this opportunity to showcase our diverse cultural traditions and natural splendor. One of the most important instruments for growth and development in any country is the national budget. Amakhosi would know that the presentation of the budget speech by the Minister of Finance was postponed last week. The decision to postpone the presentation of the budget was to allow more time for discussion on areas in the budget on which there was no agreement. This is the very first time that the government of national unity, consisting of 10 different political parties, has produced or sought to produce the national budget. It should be expected that there would be different views and different approaches. Now, we often read about this happening in other countries, where there are differences about finalizing a budget and where budgets are subjected to discussions and sometimes on an extended basis. And in other countries, differences over the budget even lead to the collapse of government. So we are in the process of seeking to build consensus. We are undertaking further discussions so that we can arrive at a budget that everyone can have confidence in.
Right, and then finally, just on regarding what the president said, he again made the point about the 12th of March and certainly hopes that the GNU would have reached consensus on that budget.
On a new, glorious future for South Africa and its people. The challenges that may well dishearten a number of people about finalizing a budget, the challenges that we are addressing of building the consensus around the budget may drive fear in the hearts of many people. But I'd like to say, take heart. We have faced many other challenges, even in our very recent past of the formation of the Government of National Unity. And this is one of them. And we will overcome. So the budget will be presented on the 12th of March, and the Minister of Finance will mount this podium and present a budget to the nation. By then, we will have reached full consensus, and we will then be able to take our country forward. I say this so that those who are concerned, who are fearful, who are terrified of this new development that we've never seen in our country, in the history of our democracy, should take heart. This is a process that we need to go through as a government of national unity. It happens in other countries, and may I also say, we may not have paid attention, but it happens also in our local governments. We've seen it happening in our metros, we've seen it happening in our local government, in our municipalities.
Right, I want to engage with you. Let's get a feel of your pulse after this.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're in the private security industry, and by switching to OUTsurance, we save 785 rand a month. It's an extra tank of fuel, it's extra reward money that we pay our officers. When it comes to insurance, OUTsurance is our security company.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, Sunday World keeps you updated. Get breaking news, sports action, and exclusive celeb scoops at your fingertips. Read it, stream it, listen to it. Sunday World, news for all, anytime, anywhere.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, I need to get to your calls. I want to get a feel of what your pulse tells you. Right, first up we go to Churchill in the Eastern Cape. Hello, Churchill.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Look, on the issue of the NHI, look, the NHI is a noble idea if it were to be well managed. But unfortunately, most of the people are skeptical of our government because the government doesn't have a good track record in as far as managing the public health system. In fact, the public system is in disarray. People are prepared to go an extra mile and pay for their kids in private schools because they don't want to take them to public schools. Same applies like the health system. There was a time when I had no medical aid. I experienced it. The traffic that is there. And people are very much concerned with their health. They don't want to die, unfortunately. That's the harsh reality. And, you will see that that fund being made a milk cow. You will remember digital advice and so on. I don't want to go on and on and on. And one other thing, you look at our leadership. They run to all these first world countries, to Russia and many other countries for their own health. They won't go to these public health systems. That's the unfortunate part. Otherwise, if it were to be well implemented and everybody goes there, even our leadership, it was a noble idea.
Well,
that's my concern.
All right, Gift, Churchill, you made an important point. Thank you for that. All right. I think you're spot on when we say, let's get a feel of your pulse and you reflect the national pulse. That call from Churchill is spot on. Nobody intentionally wants to go to a medical insurance or medical aid, right? They do it because the opposite of going to a state hospital is just too fearful. There's just too many stories. And then one thing is the NHI, it sounds fantastic, because if that can save me the crazy amounts I pay on a medical cover, I would grab it, right? But the reality is the current track record of those people in charge of our healthcare system doesn't engender any confidence to say, hold it, it'll be fine. They have to earn that right for that confidence to be there, right? As far as, and here's an interesting thought, in terms of people, the ministers, I don't think anything in law forbids ministers and cabinet people and MPs to actually go to private healthcare. But I just wonder how many across the board actually have publicly stated that they will only go to a public hospital and not to private healthcare because they believe in the system. I just wonder. And if you know who they are, I'd like to know too. Gift in the Eastern Cape, hello.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Look, I wanted to respond to the analyst that you invited earlier on, but let me, in 30 seconds, respond to Churchill.
Okay,
on
go
the
for it.
issue that of NHI that he raised. And I think he has been clouding issues. And I think he must just find time and go and read the NHI Act. I'm raising this deliberately because part of his analogy was lambasting public health system. In October last year, around 20th of October, I got a call that my mother was attacked by a light stroke. I immediately rushed to a public hospital called Livingstone Hospital in Gqeberha in Nelson Mandela. The fortunate thing is that I never introduced myself that I'm gifting on, I'm a spokesperson of ANC. But the doctors, the manner that they attended to my mother, I can tell you now that my mother is 100% fit. She was out of hospital within 3 weeks. She is no longer having that light stroke. She is medically cured, everything, because of the good treatment that she received at Livingstone Hospital. So I'm saying to people like Churchill, they must not cloud issues. I, for one, I don't have a medical aid. I go to a public hospital. Even if I'm an ANC spokesperson, I can tell you now, I don't have a medical aid.
Okay.
But quickly, look, let me respond to this analyst that we invited earlier on the reconfiguration of the ANC.
Okay, so before we get to that gift, because I think you may well be part of the Joburg thing, right? But before we get to that, let's just touch on the point that you made about your mother. I mean, I'm so glad that she's fine. But here's the problem: those issues, they are few and far between. For every great story like you've got, there are at least 10 of the opposite, of people coming there.
I don't agree.
We've seen that. There's people coming, they have to bring their own sheets to the hospital. They're going to bring their own blankets. There's also stories today of nurses having to buy food. I've heard that. All
yes,
can't be lying.
You can hear that, but sometimes it's general statements from the members of the public because they castigate the public health system. That's a point. But because I'm running out of time, let me quickly respond
Okay,
to
go for it, quickly, yeah.
by your analyst. I just forgot his name. And I think, Ashraf, there are times when I question this flawed and out-of-depth analysis that we are being fed by these so-called analysts.
Okay, what did he say that you don't like?
No. He said the ANC lost the election in KZN because the people are tired of the ANC. And he's leaving the point that the reason the ANC lost the election in KZN is because of the Zuma factor in KZN that was broadly mirrored on an ethnic identity similar to that of a leader, which is Jacob Zuma, first and foremost. And secondly, he failed to grasp the fact that Zuma party capitalized on the popularity of Jacob Zuma, especially in areas of
common ethnic identity. Lastly, Ashraf, he forgot to state that there was that Zuma factor or Zuma party factor, because most of the people who were following that Zuma party factor were beneficiaries of state capture. And Zuma himself, that party also himself, was mouthing on radical economic transformation rhetoric.
Okay, I heard that. We're going to move on. You're right about time. But see, here's the gift. Here's the point. And that, of course, was done by Zakhele and Global, right? That ultimately, he can say what he wants in terms of his opinion. The reality, whatever it was that galvanized people to vote, the majority did not vote for the ANC. And that is the truth. We know that.
For
right?
the Zuma, they voted.
It doesn't matter.
Zuma
It doesn't
party.
matter who they voted for. They didn't vote for the ANC.
No,
That's
but the fact of the matter is that the fact of the matter, Ashraf, they voted for the Zuma party, because if you look at that percentage that voted for MK, it's the people who crossed from ANC to Zuma party. Fact of the matter, it's because of the Jacob Zuma factor.
Well, that's the point. That means they were enticed to vote for another party and another person, contrary to the ANC having Ramaphosa and whoever else they had.
agree.
But Gift, we're going to move on. Let's have another chat one day soon. Much appreciated. Gift in the Eastern Cape. I need to get Impo's thoughts as well. Impo, go for it. Impo, hello.
Yes, how are you, Ashraf?
Yeah, go for it, Impo.
Yeah.
What's your point?
Yeah, my point is the same about this analyst, and I'll put an angle where I will try to be objective and fair to him. Maybe sometimes we must not call these people analysts. Let's call them commentators, because they're commenting on politics. For example, he says the ANC in KZN has brought, the NEC has brought to KZN older people of the ANC who have lost touch with the people. He said, went further to say the voters who are going to vote are young people, and those elders have lost touch with them. The question here is, the majority party, or the party with the highest vote in KZN, is MK Party, led by Jacob Zuma, way older than Jeff Radebe. I'm saying if his argument was that Jeff or the appointed configuration structure is of people who have advanced age, and therefore young people cannot identify with them, how does he reconcile that with the fact that the political party with many voters in KZN is MK Party in the last election, which is supported by an older person? Again, you pressed on him to say what is it in his own analysis that led the ANC to bring this caliber of cadres to lead the organization in KZN. He was all over the world characterizing personalities, not to say the ANC had done analysis of why they lost the election. Not only one factor, but there are many factors. But when you want to renew your organization...
All right, just give me one final point. I need to move on. News is waiting, right? Just one final point, very quickly.
My final point is that I think we need to examine the analyst we call there.
Okay. Analyst or commentator, point taken there. Thanks for that call. Right, we do need to get to the news. It's just gone 5 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. Former mayor to face charges again, and the UK announces boost in defence spending. Good day to you. The NPA says criminal proceedings will be reinstituted against former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda once further investigations have been concluded. The NPA says more complainants have come forward. The Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today provisionally withdrew the case against Gwamanda and his co-accused as the state failed to present the charge sheet. They're accused of defrauding Soweto residents in an alleged funeral policy scam. The NPA's Pindian John Ndwane.
The NPA took a decision to provisionally withdraw fraud charges against Kabelo Gwamanda and Mduduzi Zondo. The decision is premised on the emergence of additional complainants, which then necessitated further investigations that were not initially anticipated at the inception of the case. Upon finalization of these investigations, the case will be re-enrolled.
Parliament should have recognised that former Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe was not a suitably qualified person to be designated to the Judicial Services Commission. This is the argument of Advocate Jamie Ismail appearing in the Western Cape High Court on behalf of the DA. He says Parliament should therefore not have supported his nomination by his political party, the MK Party. He was removed as a judge due to misconduct. He has since resigned as a member of the JSC. The Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape has warned residents against the rising spate of the theft of water meters. Metro spokesperson Samkelo Ngwenya.
We are aware that there is a direct line between water meter thieves and scrap metal dealers, as this is one of the avenues that the thieves sell copper from. And as such, we are calling on these businesses to turn away and report people that are selling municipal property without proper paperwork. We call on communities to be vigilant. We are aware also that this is causing a lot of shortages in household water supplies, and also we are losing thousands of liters of essential water as a result.
A man accused of robbing a 66-year-old pensioner on their first date has been granted bail. The suspect was released on bail in the Verulam Magistrates Court north of Durban. Private security company Reaction Unit SA says it's believed the accused met the woman on a dating site. He then picked her up and took her to a shopping mall where she withdrew her SASSA grant. It's believed they then stopped at a petrol station where the man allegedly fled with the woman's bag. Reaction Unit SA spokesperson Prem Balram.
He robbed a 66-year-old granny, stealing 2,000 rand, her bag, her cell phone and valuables when she got up to freshen herself at a local garage. He was tracked down by members of Reaction Unit South Africa and arrested in Montford in Chatsworth, KZN.
2 more immigration officers arrested in connection with an ongoing fraud and corruption case have made their first appearance in the Messina Magistrates Court in Limpopo. They were arrested at the Beitbridge port of entry. The Border Management Authority's Memo Khotsi.
The BMA has continuously reiterated its zero-tolerance stance on corruption and remains committed to upholding the integrity of the South African border management system. Currently, the BMA is processing 45 cases that are still to be concluded. About 27 officials have been dismissed since the BMA's inception on 1 April 2023.
Finally, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced what he calls the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. He's told MPs in Parliament why this is necessary.
One of the great lessons of our history is that instability in Europe will always wash up on our shores, and that tyrants like Putin only respond to strength. Russia is a menace in our waters, in our airspace and on our streets.
The top story, the NPA says criminal proceedings will be reinstituted against former Joburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda once further investigations have been concluded. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Khoos.
In sports this hour, Vilakazi steps down from Amazulu co-coach role. Erasmus hails Kishoff as warrior after Prop retires. And Proteas Australia Champions Trophy clash abandoned. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg has a crash reported at Crown Interchange. The M1 northbound in Sandton has a crash before Marlborough Drive exit. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview has a crash near Van Buren Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road. The N14 southbound in Centurion is queuing towards the Trekhout Road exit. And the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a stationary truck reported after the Rigel Avenue exit. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported after Umgeni Road, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards the Okavango Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road. And the N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care. At SAFM, we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, great that you're connected with us on the National Pulse. We do it 3 to 6 every single day. And of course, you play a very important part in helping us understand the pulse of the nation. So keep it coming, keep your thoughts going as well, not just by calling in which you can, absolutely, 086 000 2032, but also by posting on the X platform. Just tweet us, SAFM Radio, and then tweet to me or tag me at Ashraf Garda. And then you have the WhatsApp text or voice note options, 0614 104 107. Still more to come, including we'll get further comment from Dr. Sibongile Dlomo, the chairperson of Portfolio Committee on Health, just responding to the conversations we've been having about the state of our healthcare. That comes up later on, right? In fact, but let's get now to the first things first. We've been talking about the conversation we had with the Minister of Health, right, regarding, many things, but also around the issues of HIV/AIDS and their 1.1 million person campaign. So with me to get another perspective on it is Anele Yawa, who's the Treatment Action Campaign's General Secretary. Anele, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Greetings to you and greetings to the listeners at home.
Thank you. What do you make, first of all, regarding this announcement today of this 1.1 million person campaign, which I understand primarily is to narrow the gap between those that are living with HIV or AIDS, but they're not on treatment?
So, firstly, as the Treatment Action Campaign, we really welcome the announcement by the Minister of Health and the National Department of Health, as well as the launch of this campaign of trying to ensure that about 1.1 million people living with HIV are on treatment by December. One will remember that in the country we've got an estimated number of about 7.8 million people who are living with HIV, and about 5-point-something million people are on antiretroviral. 2 million plus people living with HIV are not yet initiated on treatment. But also, let's look at those people who are already on treatment. We have a huge number of people who were initiated on treatment who have since stopped taking their treatment due to a number of reasons. I'm sure we are all familiar about the Richards reports, which continuously every quarter gives a picture of what makes other people to stop taking their treatment, what makes people to disengage from care, starting from long waiting hours, long queues, congested health establishments, issues related to staff attitude, where people are being required to produce proof of residence, where people, when they change one facility to the other, are often asked to bring a transfer letter or a referral letter, and a number of issues. So these issues, in some instances, have contributed to some other people to stop taking their treatment. And if, as the country, we want to reach the global targets of 95, 95, 95, it therefore means we, as the country, as a collective, both government, business, civil society and all role players, we need to go back to our communities, firstly to identify those people who were initiated on treatment and who are not on treatment as we are talking, before we can talk about initiating new people.
Okay.
But above all, what is important for all of us, including the minister and all of us, this is what we have agreed upon, is to say, as much as we launch this campaign, what is important is to understand that the service point is at facility level. If we do not sensitize our healthcare workers, if we do not address the barriers at facility level, which pushes people away, we will not be achieving what we want to achieve.
So are you convinced? Are you convinced in terms of what was pronounced today by the Minister of Health that some of those issues you referred to will be solved? You see, one thing is an intention for a campaign, but that rollout has to be exactly that. It has to address all the issues you mentioned earlier on.
We, in terms of what has been announced by the minister, we are convinced, but us being convinced must not end on what has been pronounced. It must go down at the level of the facility, at the level of the sub-district, at the level of the district, as well as at the level of the province, in terms of addressing all the challenges that people are experiencing on the ground, starting from everything that I've listed, staff attitude, long waiting times, and all those things. And if we do not address these bottlenecks at facility level, it therefore means this campaign will not be successful. But if we want it to be a success, we need to cascade it down to the level of the facility, because that's where people are accessing that.
Okay, point made. What are your thoughts? I mean, the numbers say there are 7.8 million people living with HIV/AIDS, and of that, like there's just in fact about 5.9 million people of that 7.8 are those who are on ARV treatments of some sort, right? Where does the trend tell us where we're going with regard to HIV/AIDS in South Africa?
As the country, one needs to understand that South Africa has the largest ART program across the whole world, because we are the only country in the whole world that has about 7.8 million people living with HIV, that has more than 5 million people on antiretroviral treatment. And it therefore tells us that if as the country we can pull up our socks, we can be able to achieve the first 95 of making sure that people are tested for HIV, and 95% of those people knows their status. And those who are living with HIV, 95% of those who are living with HIV are initiated on treatment, as well as 95% of those who are in treatment are adhering to their treatment. But this is not only something that must be done by the government only. All of us, we need to roll up our sleeves to ensure that we meet these global targets. So it therefore means the civil society has a huge role to play. And if the civil society is not given a space around the discussion table where decisions are taken, we might be missing a point as a country. So it is against that reason we call upon our government to create a space for civil society, and the civil society must be regarded as an equal partner on this intervention, not only as people who are going to be told what needs to be done. They need to be listened to.
All right, finally, besides what was spoken about today in terms of the rollout and the things you've mentioned, right, is there one thing still missing in a plan to combat HIV/AIDS?
I think one of the things that we are missing as the country is around prevention. You know, if as the country we can double our efforts in terms of prevention to ensure that we reduce the number of new HIV infections. You know, in old days, you will go to hotels, you will go to public places, you will find condoms. But now, if you go to hotels, in airports and everywhere, we are no longer seeing condoms. But also the message around prevention has just disappeared into 18N. So it therefore means all of us, including the political principals, what we need to do and emphasize on it is around prevention, because it is said that prevention is better than cure.
All right, point made. Anele Yawa, thanks for your time representing the Treatment Action Campaign. In fact, the General Secretary there. Your thoughts on that, on the prevention and the actual rollout in terms of targeting 1.1 million South Africans who are with HIV, but they're not using any treatment at this point in time. This is the National Pulse.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, we certainly had lots of health talk today from that conversation earlier on with the Minister of Health. Then we've had callers talking about it one way or the other. We've got a further comment now from Dr. Sibongile Dlomo, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Health. Appreciate your time, Dr. Dlomo. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. I'm Sibongiseni, not Sibongile. I'm Sibongiseni Dlomo.
Oh, I see. Oh, sorry, there's a whole typo here. My apology for that. So, Dr. Sibongiseni Dlomo, right? Got that. Apology for that. And your title?
I'm currently the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Health in the National Assembly, former Deputy Minister of Health.
Okay, perfect. Well, therefore, your opinion in terms of where you are is particularly important, right? Now, you wanted to raise a point. What do you want to tell us?
No, I was just trying to assist you because I heard you saying you don't know of any public representative that uses public hospitals.
Yeah.
It must go for record. Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, the current Minister of Health, uses Steve Biko Academic Hospital. Just last year, he had a minor procedure. He went into that hospital and he was treated there. Myself, Dr. Dlomo, I use my local clinic, Umbumbulu, and when actually this is bigger and something more complex than my clinic, I get referred to and I go to King Edward Hospital. So there are not many, yes, I agree. What I miss when I go to King Edward Hospital is not that hotel aspect of the hospital itself, but I get the best of the nurses and doctors, some of them who were training with me, some of them who were my teachers when I was training at the King Edward Hospital. So I still do have that type of confidence in the public health.
Well, I think thanks for clearing that up. I mean, I think, yes, I actually now remember about the story of Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi about, being admitted to hospital. I certainly remember that. But you also concede, I mean, it's few and far between. You also make the point, and I think it's important, that, a medical doctor is a medical doctor, whether the medical doctor is a doctor at a private health facility or in a public one. It's the other facilities that tend to compromise patients, right? Now, the fact that you said there's few and far between, that actually we're talking about elected officials, right, that use private hospitals. In your opinion, why is it so few? Why do you think that is the case?
Look, I think the challenge that we do face in the country, we need to build the confidence that this public hospital, in fact, the starting point is that all doctors in private hospitals and nurses get trained in the public. So what it gets missing there is that there's a large volume of patients that you see, and therefore the resources therefore get squeezed into that. Otherwise, and number two, we do not have that hotel aspect that is looking like a real hotel when you're in hospital because of it being in the public. But otherwise, you still get the best of the best in terms of treatment there. In that place where sometimes, yes, you are asked to bring your own blanket, this and that. So it's a matter of giving us getting the Department of Health to give confidence to the citizens.
Okay. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? Because I know I chatted to Dr. Motsoaledi, not today, but before, and, he made the point about the medical doctors who finished community service and they can't be placed. And primarily, he said, Ashraf, it's about the money. We don't have the money. So the point that you made about how do we engender confidence from the public to use public hospitals like yourself, that will only come when they see the service delivery at the hospitals changing, isn't it? How are you going to do that when there's no money?
There's an independent institution. This is the second point. There's an independent institution called the Office of the Health Standard Compliance that must go to my clinic, your hospital, and say, but a hospital must look like this. A clinic must look like this. It must have so many of the nurses. Yes, you are right. It will always not an optimal number. You may not get the best of the best in terms of numbers, but what is an optimal minimum standard of numbers of nurses that must be there in this clinic? What are the perimeters? This clinic must be fenced. There must be support at the gate, safety and security of the patients and staff. So there are basic non-negotiables that are put in place that must be there. So those are the things that are work in progress that must really be done. And we always, as a portfolio committee, say, Minister, what is your timeline on the non-negotiables? Because you put this as a non-negotiable. Get them done, because that is the only way you are going to say to myself, continue using the Mbumbulu clinic. There will be a nurse, they're very experienced, and the doctor will then refer you further. Don't rush to go to Inkosi Alfred Lutuli until and unless you have been referred, because the system will allow that to happen.
Well, I'm glad that you cleared it up, and I think it's a very sober conversation that we're having. So thank you for that. Perhaps another conversation down the line about creating those actual shifts would be needed. Dr. Sibongiseni Dlomo, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Health in Parliament. Appreciate you connecting with us here on the National Pulse.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, I understand that the youth in Mbombela have marched to the University of Mpumalanga demanding the prioritization for employment and economic opportunities. What does that mean, and what do they hope to achieve? The SABC News reporter is Michael Ndluli, who filed this report.
Tension was high at the University of Mpumalanga's Mbombela campus as protesters gathered to deliver their memorandum to management. The youth's demands include a request for a list of service providers and companies that have been awarded subcontracts. Additionally, the protesters are calling for 50% of the procurement budget to be allocated to businesses owned by local youth. One of the march organizers, Tapelo Makagula, says they are not satisfied with the university's management responses to the initial memorandum they submitted about 2 weeks ago.
The management at first did not respond to the memorandum that was handed over on the day of the march. We felt that no, maybe they want us to come back again to submit or to resubmit the memorandum that was submitted on the 4th of February. So we are hoping for a different response, and in fact we are rejecting those responses because we can see that they are biased, they are not honest and truthful. We are now saying we want them to meet our demands, or we want the minister to come and intervene in that regard.
The youth claim that they have been excluded from the employment opportunities despite possessing the required skills.
They are not giving us jobs, but instead jobs are given to people from other provinces. From provinces such as Northwest, most of us completed school, and when you get to 35, you are not employable.
We are applying, we are qualified, they have companies, they have gradings, your C gradings, levels, your building, your general and building, but they don't get any opportunities. So we are coming here to the university to say they must give us the particular companies that are working here, more especially those ones that are getting sub, so that we understand who are these people, because we feel and believe that majority of the people that are working here are not from Mpumalanga.
The University of Mpumalanga says they are hoping to have discussions with the youth leaders to find solutions. Spokesperson for the University of Mpumalanga, Tlangelan OBC.
We wouldn't want to engage with the concerns that they've raised through the media. One of the things that we said on the demands that they had said, we said, look, these are our policies. We're guided by our policies to respond to that. And we also provided options that we could pursue with them. Unfortunately, we were hoping that there will be a space for engagement. That has never happened. No wonder now we are requesting them to come to the table to say we can't be sending each other communique via email. We need to sit down and engage with the leadership of the group to ensure that we address their concerns.
The unemployed youth have threatened to come back and camp within the university premises if their demands are not met. I am Michael Mdluli in Mbombela, Mpumalanga.
Right, let's get your thoughts on that, just in terms of the student protests in that region in Mpumalanga, but not just that, the issues of the treatment action campaign conversation, and the portfolio committee chairperson of health, and then the initial one about Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, and I can go on. There's some such big issues. President Ramaphosa addressing the traditional leaders. What do you make of that? Does that move you in any way? The state of the cryptocurrency industry, has that moved your pulse in any way? I'd like to hear. In fact, here's one. Ashraf, in the Kakamas and Uppington area, We have a major shortage of nurses in hospitals and in clinics from Terence. Well, you see, that we hear all the time. Let's get to some of the further comments from you, right? Here's one about the ANC.
Afternoon, Ashrak, SAFM listeners. These ANC guys must not come and lie to us. Yes, they will go to the public hospitals and then get good treatment because they are known. Good, they can make a noise and someone will be fired. But me and you, we go there, we'll be treated like we are the gutters. Finish. Machozi choose. Eater.
Well, you know, that's the point. I mean, even the chairperson of the portfolio committee made the point about confidence. So this is my point to you. You listening to me, talking to you. To what position, if you have a choice, obviously you want private clinics to be cheaper than what they are. They're too expensive anyway, right? But if you had a choice to go to, at this point in time, in terms of good service where you're comfortable with, but in a private clinic and a state hospital at this point in time right now, which one would you choose? And I know you may say, I wish the private was cheap. I wish so too. Absolutely. At this point in time, as many have said, can you afford to take the risk of going to a state hospital? There are many examples of things going wrong there. And if they're right, then convince me on a mass scale, not one or two isolated incidences.
Ralph, you've reminded us at least 2 times already in a short space of time that he's actually the spokesperson of the NC in the Eastern Cape. So chances are, wherever he goes, including at that hospital, Livingston, probably told them who he is. I mean, so thanks, Ashraf Tabo.
Okay, got that, Tabo. Let's get to George in Tembisa. Hi, George.
Yes, Mr. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
The problem is we've got a problem with what we call Ekurhuleni ski power here. So the problem, there was load shedding yesterday at 6 o'clock, which is 18 hours, and it was supposed to come back at 20 hours. Unfortunately, 20 hours, electricity came back for just few seconds and went off. So I phoned them today. Their technician, they came here. Then they struggled to open the DB box on the street. And then they said they are going to fetch the machine, the other machine to come and open. It's been 2 hours now waiting again. We are still in the darkness. And now 6 o'clock, it's going to be load shedding again. The problem is the stuff, the food going to be rotten in the fridges. And we don't have any option currently. The electricity we're buying, remember, when electricity is finished, it went off automatically. So this is really not good. We need your help.
Absolutely. I believe you can actually claim against that, when your electricity goes off and then you lose all your foods. But the reality is, like most people just say, what can I do? And the truth is, it's very, very expensive when you lose all your food. So point taken, yeah?
The problem is that technician, they came here, they said they're going to fetch another machine to open the DB box. Even now, it's been 2 hours and some minutes. They're not coming, and it's going to be dark again. And this load shedding going to start again at 6.
Yeah, sure.
You understand?
I understand. Totally frustrating, George. Can we leave it at that? We're on to news time. Thank you for that. You see, that story about not even load shedding, but just blackouts. There are people everywhere. I've got something from Zach Park, in fact, to say there's been no water there for 2 weeks. Like, we take these things for granted. This is our country. What do we do about it? 5:30. Here's the news headlines with Greg Gross.
Quick look at the headlines. The electricity minister says South Africa is looking to use its G20 presidency to push for energy security on the continent. The NPA says criminal proceedings will be reinstituted against former Joburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda once further investigations have been concluded. And conservationists are raising the alarm over declining vulture populations. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound is queuing towards the N17 Soweto exit. The R59 northbound in Alberton has a crash reported near Michelle Avenue. Colette Drive in Melrose has a crash at the M1 highway, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria has a crash reported at the N4 Witbank highway. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle after Umgeni Road, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving. That's towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavongo Road exit. Bacon Cross Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. And Hilberson Drive northbound slow moving at Bosmansdam Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
So tell me, what can you talk about? Because I'm looking at this picture of the scoreboard of South Africa, Australia, and it says, match abandoned due to rain, not a ball bowled. So I said, well, that's your cricket story is over.
Yeah, the cricket story is definitely over, but I'm going to start off with the results from Banyana beating Lesotho 2-0 in the second international friendly at UJ Stadium this afternoon. This is all thanks to goals by Sibongile Ntwane, who scored a goal in the 4th minute, and Unathi Simaile, who scored deep into optional time of the first half. Meanwhile, Coach Desiree Ellis says that they will look to plan another camp of this nature for a final assessment into the young talent before the final selection for Morocco in July.
I'm very excited for the future because this is a fantastic group of young players that we've had a look at. I know there's more out there, but hopefully we can have a similar camp sometime. We know this is a big year leading up to July where we go to defend our title at in Morocco, the WAFCON title, and then almost immediately after that is the qualifier for the 2026. So we're looking at maybe, having something like this again because it was really, really encouraging. It also gives the players the opportunity to see what it's like to be in the national team.
Meanwhile, Amazulu co-coach Vusi Vilakazi has resigned from his role with immediate effect. In a statement Usutu released this afternoon, it says in his letter of resignation, Vilakazi says that he's stepping down due to personal reasons that need his urgent attention, making it impossible to fully commit to his responsibilities at the club. And this leaves Arthur Zwane as the sole head coach going forward. Elsewhere, Royal AM Football Club has been officially withdrawn from the 2025 Nedbank Cup following a decision by the National Soccer League Executive Committee. As a result of Royal AM's withdrawal, the Nedbank Cup fixture scheduled has been revised, and the match initially affected fixture number 21 will see Milford FC facing Sekhukhune United on the 2nd of March at 3 p.m. and the clash is set for Princess Magogo Stadium. Then Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says that the Gunners will never give up on the Premier League title race. The Gunners missed the chance to close the gap on Liverpool on Saturday, losing to West Ham before Arne Slot's Reds beat Manchester City the following day to go 11 points clear at the top of the table. And many commentators have conceded that the title basically belongs to Liverpool after their victory, but Arteta is in no such mood to exit the race. In rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has hailed prop Steven Kirchhoff as a warrior and a fine ambassador of what the Springboks stand for. This is after Kirchhoff was forced to retire after suffering serious neck injury. Now, the 33-year-old sustained the injury in September in 2024 while playing in a Currie Cup match for Western Province, and also revealed that he was 2 millimeters from death. In a statement, Kirchhoff says that after an extensive rehabilitation process, he was advised by a specialist neurosurgeon that there would be a high risk of another injury should he continue playing. In terms of his career, Kirchhoff began with the Stormers as an 18-year-old, the front rower making his debut for the club in 2011 before collecting his first international cap 5 years later. In cricket, the Champions Trophy clash between Australia and South Africa was abandoned without a ball being bowled because of rain. Now, this means that points have been split, with the Proteas now top of Group B because of a better run rate. South Africa are scheduled to face England on Saturday in what could be a must-win clash in Karachi in their final match before the playoffs. Then in motorsport, Somkiat Chantra is all set and ready to make history as Thailand's first MotoGP rider this week, and in all front of his home fans. The 26-year-old will debut at the season opening Thai MotoGP on Sunday, the first rider from the country to line up in the Premier class. Known as Kong, Somkiat will settle up alongside his teammate Johan Sarko of Honda LCR. Well, with that said, before I say goodbye, Ashraf, I did find that clip that you're talking about of Jamie Carragher.
Yeah.
And this is
so
what
he's
he said.
just remind people who he is so they know.
He's a legend.
But Who did he play for? That's the context.
Liverpool.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the fact he's probably with Egypt and he's probably not playing in the major tournament as such, or maybe got a great chance of winning. I think it's either the Champions League or the major tournament. Normally, the player who excels in that. You know, you're looking at sort of Vinny Jr., Mbappe right now, Real Madrid looking really good, going for the Champions League. Liverpool will be in that conversation, but right now, he's certainly the front runner. And Roy, what you just said then in terms of getting maybe more trophies and league titles, that could actually put him above probably Kenny Dalglish and Steven Gerrard in sort of where he ranks in terms of Liverpool legends, because I think right now he's right on their shoulders.
Just say AFCON is a major tournament because a lot of people are saying people not taking that. Say AFCON is a major tournament, just so you don't.
No, well, Egypt are not going to win the World Cup, are they?
No, but AFCON is big, wasn't it? Remember when him and Mane was going for it? And I'm just saying, AFCON.
It's a fact. It's a fact. If you win the Euros or you win the Copa America, it's deemed to be big, so the AFCON's in the same level.
So there you have it. Jamie basically saying that according to him, the AFCON is a small tournament. And for me, I think his comments, as you did ask earlier on what I think about this, they're quite naive and disrespectful. And for someone like him to think that the AFCON is a small competition or a tournament, I mean, it has literally produced so many good players, including Mo Salah. But just thinking about Jamie and the time that he played and some of the players, African players that he played alongside, including the likes of Didier Drogba, who ended up winning the AFCON in his 30s, the likes of Samuel Eto'o, also who found AFCON very, very important, like playing in the
But let me ask you
tournament.
this, isn't this the point? The point is not, he's not saying whether African players are good enough. I mean, that's not the question. The question is whether he is reflecting a bias or he's saying there is a bias in judging the Ballon d'Or, because the question was whether Mohamed Salah will win the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you look at what you do for your club and what you do for your country.
Yes.
And what you do for your country has a huge bias, no matter where you are. So you can have a lousy league season and a great World Cup. And if you win the World Cup, you could be Player of the Year. You get my point. And it is in that context that he said that AFCON is sort of lesser important than the Europa, what's a European Championship?
No, I tend to disagree with that. I feel like I understand how you're putting it right now. He didn't put it like that.
Yeah.
He said, unfortunately, he's not playing in a big tournament like the Champions League.
So he tweeted today to correct, if I can call it himself. Can I read this thing quickly?
Okay.
He says, the point I was trying to make yesterday was that Mo Salah is at a disadvantage playing for Egypt in terms of him winning the Ballon d'Or. If Salah had an average season at Liverpool but won the AFCON and was most valuable player at the tournament, I don't think he would win the Ballon d'Or. He says, because I don't think AFCON carries the weight of other tournaments. But if Mbappe had an average season at Real Madrid but won the World Cup or the Euros, he would still have a great opportunity, meaning of winning the Ballon d'Or. So my question, and I don't have an answer, in reflecting his own bias, right?
Yeah.
Is he also not reflecting the bias of the Ballon d'Or organizers? And that's really the biggest issue, because that part's not wrong. There is a bias.
There is a bias, but then he should say it. For me, I see it as if there's a bias with whoever is choosing the winner of the Ballon d'Or chooses players that are going to win in the Champions League. But for him to say that a Champions League does not weigh the same weight as the AFCON is completely false. And you could even hear the other commentators with Mika Richards also saying, but let me correct you, AFCON is a big tournament.
Yeah,
and he even said, what are you saying?
So you give him a thumbs down?
Yeah, big
Right.
thumbs down.
You better say your goodbyes, because the audience before that, what do you think about what Jamie Carragher said about AFCON versus the European Championship versus whatever the South American version of that is? You better say your goodbyes.
Right, with that said, ke natume Kgapele Modimo ke yo.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, so Jimmy Moyala hosts the SAFM Market Update from 6 to 7. And to set the scene, Jimmy, what's moving markets today?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It seems that it's been quite a red day across the board, especially on the commodities front, which would have affected our resource counters. They were down on the day. I'll give you a sense of how they performed in a sec. What we are going to be taking a look at on the show a little later on is we're going to be looking at the budget speech. Yes, the budget speech that never happened. We've seen some interesting reflections or reactions from Moody's, the ratings agency. It's very rare that we get some commentary around this type of event. They usually comment on the outcomes of the budget, so that we've seen them comment on the fact that the budget didn't happen. We're going to look at those comments and look at the fact that since the budget speech was postponed, we've since had a reworked budget presented to Cabinet, and Cabinet doesn't seem to be happy with the reworked version either. So we're going to try and get a sense of what's happening there. We're also going to try and get a sense of this rumored wealth tax that is set to be coming up in the next budget. We don't yet know if it's confirmed or what's happening there, but we're going to look at the permutations around that and see what a proposed wealth tax could potentially look like, what it would mean for taxpayers, and what it would mean for South Africa in terms of how much revenue to generate. We're going to speak to a tax specialist around that. Then we're going to take a look at the Google story. The Competition Commission came out with their findings from a inquiry that they instigated around October of 2023 into where Google was getting its revenues from in terms of the advertising world and the media landscape, and it looks as though the Competition Commission has recommended, amongst other things, that the anti-competitive behavior in the media news space that has been effectively perpetrated by Google, according to them, requires Google to pay some compensation. Google doesn't agree with this, and we're going to take a look at this from a fairly neutral perspective. We're going to speak to a competition law expert at Worksmans to try and understand the case that the Comcom had put forward, as well as Google's side of it as well. And then we're going to wrap up the show on this Tuesday with an agri feature. We're going to be taking a look at the African army worm that seems to be attacking some crops in South Africa. It's already been spotted in 3 provinces. The outbreak has spread to 3 provinces so far. We're going to take a look at the severity of that and the seriousness of that for crops and for farmers in South Africa. Before we get to that, as I said, I would update you on the markets and how markets have closed. From a local perspective, our markets closed in the green, but let's start with international markets. All of the Asian markets were in the red, with the biggest losers being the Nikkei in Tokyo and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, both down more than 1.3% each. The ASX in Sydney was down about 0.55%. If we look at European markets, the CAC 40 was down marginally, about 8 basis points. The DAX was up about 11 basis points, and the FTSE was up about 0.25%. The Nasdaq is currently down 1.75%, and the S&P is down a full percent at the moment, but those markets are obviously going to still be trading into the evening. Our own local markets, as I said, commodity prices had a dampener on resource counters. They were down 0.5%, but industrials and financials were each up 0.2%, and as a result of that, the all share was up 0.38%, and the top 40 up 0.45%. The currency side of things, the rand still holding steady against the US dollar at 18 rand and 39 cents. 1 British pound will cost you 23 rand and 29 cents. 1 euro 19 rand 32 cents, and 1 Australian dollar 11 rand and 64 cents. The price of a Bitcoin, shocking, is below $90,000 a coin, currently at 86,900 a Bitcoin, or in rand terms 1.6 million. Yesterday we were at 1.73 million, just for a bit of context around that. So big moves on the cryptocurrency side, a big sell-off there. And if we look at those commodities before we go, platinum and palladium still below $1,000 an ounce, not very happy there, but Brent crude at $73.75 a barrel, so looking stronger there, and the gold price coming off a bit, about 4% at the moment. $2,903 an ounce. It was a lot higher earlier today, but we are seeing a bit of pressure on the precious metal at the moment. We're going to look into some of these movements a little later on when we come back, but for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Jimmy. You have a great show coming up just now, but it means now it's time for your calls, your tweets, your text messages, your voice notes, because I want to get to feel your pulse.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
X at SAFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, lots of comments regarding the NHI issues, the issues of private hospitals that came up once again today, and then also the treatment action campaign, the HIV story. Also comments regarding the position of the former mayor of Joburg from the Al Jamaa party, who effectively was, the case against him was withdrawn for now. I'm talking about Kabelo Gwamanda, and the chat I had with Khanif Hendricks, the leader of the Al Jamaa party, but other things as well, right? Pumelela in Pretoria, go for it. Hello.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good to be on your show.
I'm appreciative of that. Thank you so much.
Yes. I really would like to comment quickly about the issue of our health system and the NHI.
Okay.
First of all, my wish is that we look at NHI as a reset button opportunity for us as citizens to discuss about our health system, looking at what is good on the private side and checking out a lot of what is bad in the private sector, and looking at shining corners, and there are a lot of them in the public sector, and addressing many problems that we all accept are there. So that it's not an either-or situation. Because let me tell you, Ashraf, what's happening in the private sector is not a health system. It's money-making gone crazy. Let me make a quick example why I say that. I have a grandson who's a toddler and has a private hospital because the parents are on a medical aid. A stone throw. I can literally run with him to this hospital. But their medical aid forces them, because that's where their medical program is, to take the child 9 traffic lights away from where they are. And if they use this one that's nearest, they have to pay something called a co-payment of 10,000 rand, 15,000 rand, and write a thesis size administrative form to say if they are.
Well, I mean,
if they avoid that 15,000, was it an emergency? So that's one thing. The second thing I want to comment on very quickly, following on the Deputy Minister and gift, my family and I prefer the public sector when we are realistic.
Yeah, well, I think you raise an important point, and I think as you say this, Pumelela, here's the important thing, that, well, first of all, you're talking about it not an either or, something finding the middle. So I think in principle, if the NHI can address that and give us something much better than the state hospitals we have now, and give us something much cheaper than the private hospitals right now, they're on a winning streak, if they can do so. The bottom line is, as has been discussed before, there's a lack of confidence in the public hospitals because of a track record up to now. Until the track record doesn't change, that will continue. And here's the last point to what you bring up.
There's no confidence actually on both sides, Ashraf. What's happening in the private sometimes borders on criminality.
Well, I know Minister Motsoaledi also made the point about it being a business. So I think there's a reluctance that people sign up for medical cover, a reluctance because they're just scared of the consequences if they don't, right? But here's the last thing on that one there, which is the private hospitals thrive, right, in the same way that security companies thrive when people feel that the current SAPS doesn't give them the safety they require. I mean, I'm sure you agree with that. So if we address those problems, then they would disappear in terms of...
My plea is, let's use this as a reset button platform, the NHI as a reset button platform to take whatever is good in the private, retain what is good in the public, and talk about how we massify this so that the majority of South Africans have access to good health. But that's a big shout out to the professionals at Steve Biko, in Grace Hospital in KZN, RK Khan, Clarewood Hospital, a clinic in Claremont, Dabega, and many more, where you walk in and you really feel like the public sector has a lot to offer because that's where our best brains are, medically and nursing-wise.
Well, I'm glad you called in. We need to have more chats. We've had many chats when you were part of the SABC before, Pumulelo. Thank you for that. Absolutely.
I know.
But I think your contribution has been invaluable here today. So thank you so much for that. Of course, we're talking about Pumulelo Nzimande, the former Public Service Commissioner, but also, part of the SABC or the SABC People's Officer. And at that stage, what was it? I was head of the SABC's independent freelancers at that time, and we had many, many conversations. But Pumulelo, thanks for that. Right. Further comments. Let's get Sipo's thoughts on hospitals once again.
Hey, Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Good to connect with you. Go for it.
Hey, Ashraf, first time caller, so I know you always make a noise and welcome people, so I'm very happy to finally connect. But I listen to you all the time, and you put out a challenge that I just couldn't resist, and I had to call in.
Go for it.
You challenged us to say, how can we prove the fact that in general there is good that is happening in state hospitals.
Yeah.
Now the previous caller just took it out of my words, took my words out, and I think it's all of us as South Africans. There are pockets of unbelievable excellence in the state system, and I'm gladly put up my hand as I was one of those. I had an unbelievable knee injury that required full knee reconstruction. Went to look at options at state. It would have cost me over 150,000. In fact, the last time I met my doctor, he said way more than that. So let's put it at 150,000.
Mm-hmm.
I got the procedure done at a state hospital, and this is shout out to King Edward, the same hospital that the chairperson of the portfolio committee actually highlighted. But I had mine orthopedic surgery at Clearwood. It cost me 150 rand. 150 rand because I was classified as somebody who was working. At a state hospital, because they looked and they said you are somebody who's working who can afford to pay something, it cost me a mere 150 rand.
Okay.
And I've gone the
Fantastic.
state route was 150,000. So, and
You mean the medical aid route, not the state route. The state route cost you
so
150. Got that? Yeah.
The medical aid would have cost me 150. There was no way I would have had to sell my wife and kids to be able to afford it.
All right. Well, Sipo, thanks for calling in, right? And I'll say this much, right? And I think this is important. If you asked me, what would be my first choice? To have a state hospital that is top of the class, that we don't have to pay for medical aid cover, hand me in. If you ask me to eliminate private security in my community and the X amount of money that we pay every month so that we can use that money more constructively, I'm in. The problem is the point that you made, Sipo, the pockets are there, but we need to find a way to multiply those pockets. That's the critical thing that we need to do in our country. So thanks for that, Sipo. There's more thoughts here. Sydney in Arkenhoek, you've got some thoughts on accidents, right? Go for it.
Yes, Brother Ashraf, Sydney, Labour in Arkenhoek Bushbuck. Brother Ashraf, let me talk of something different of today's topic. In between Arkenhoek and Hoedspruit, it's an R40 road. 3 weeks ago, a painful, terrible accident happened. A taxi carrying people in the morning rushing to work, and we are told it was fast running. It collided with a van, which we are told was carrying gas cylinders. It collided, and with the speed of a second, it engulfed in a heavy ball of fire. People just bent inside with no help of any kind. Yeah. The door itself was bent inside. That van closed tight the door. But what shocked me as a second trauma, you still find these pictures on people's phones. Why the people, when others were painfully so inside that taxi, but others had the guts to shoot pictures instead of assisting the people. There's no evidence of they were even assisting, but you still see pictures showing that instead of people assisting them.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that often. What's more important, to assist the person or to basically spread the news about what happened? Sydney, I got that. We're going to move on. Yeah.
It's painful, Ashraf. Why people do this painful thing, shooting pictures, dead bodies inside the place, beyond recognition.
I wish people can answer that. Well, thank you for raising that. Here's a question to you listening, right? Have you been in a, I hope it never happens to you, but have you been in a position where you've witnessed a disaster, but there are still people who are alive or some of them have passed away, and is your first response to take the pictures or to try and save them? And what have you, in fact, done? Thanks for that, Sydney. There's further comments. Ashraf, Jamie's a racist, along with the Ballon d'Or player nominees, and most European football officials undermine the African footballers and the players. Mane, Sadio Mane talking about, won both the Champions League and the AFCON the same year and came second with Liverpool and was the best in Europe. But because he's African, they gave the Ballon d'Or to a defender instead. Mane was influential and Liverpool were weak when he wasn't playing, and Salah was ineffective when Mane wasn't playing. There's another thought there, right? Okay, let's get to further thoughts from you. And still, there's a lot that talks about the HIV story, but here's one about the conversation with Hanif Hendricks from the Al Jamaa Party.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm surprised that Hendricks is now acting like a law expert. Yes, I understand that he must defend Kabelo, but he must not act like a lawyer. He's not a lawyer. He's a mere president of a political party and deputy minister, which is a political appointment with no law background. He must just let the law take its course. Period. Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machaba from Lesotho.
Well, thank you, Peter. There we are. I mean, I think you're right. So the case has been withdrawn now, but it's provisional. It could be revisited or reopened up based upon other testimonies, which, according to what I'd heard, have already been placed or is coming, right? Further comments about the medical aid certainly is a big issue today.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ashraf. Medical aid or no medical aid, you have money, you don't have money, you are Mike from Newlands, you are whoever from wherever, you are the minister, you've got the best insurance, life insurance or whatever, medical aid. Everybody is going 6 feet under. That's the end of the story.
Okay, and your point? Got that. Right, here's another. And sometimes they're burying 9 feet nowadays because of the graves. They got 2 in 1.
Hey, Ashraf, your caller said our leaders go to first world countries for medical care. Can we please have a list of those leaders that did that, except Jabu Mabuza, who went to Russia? Who else? Because we must speak the truth, you know?
Well, I mean, you're right. I think there's, 1 or 2 doesn't make it 100 people. I mean, you're quite right. So what you need is multiple lists. Those that went, those leaders that go to private hospitals. There's nothing illegal about it. And those that go to state hospitals. What's the percentage? Just so that we understand their level of confidence in our public service around healthcare themselves. It will certainly help us. And if they want to change that, then they must change the systems right now, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. This is Andre in Cape Town. Sorry for the background noise. Ashraf, why is that council called the Council of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders? Why draw a distinction between traditional leaders and Khoisan leaders? As if to say Khoisan is not regarded as traditional in South Africa. Why is that?
Well, you raise an interesting point. Even as I read it, I thought about it. But here's the 2 ways. The one is because, maybe to your point, they're not regarded as traditional leaders. So that's the bad news. The other one is the fact that they're being identified as a separate grouping also ensures that they are not forgotten. So the brand of the Khoisan is stronger by them being separate. But I'm not judging it. I'm saying there's just 2 ways to look at that. Okay, that's the show. I think we probably could have had another hour talking about some of the biggest issues. We don't have the time, but it is the National Pulse. And, the pulse rate reflects the nation. That continues 24/7, not just 3 to 6, right? But as far as what we do on the show, we'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, go to the website. All the podcasts are there of all the issues we cover. safm.co.za. Then you go podcast. Then you find the National Pulse, and then all the conversations we've had for months on end, you will find them there. So let's do that tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Enjoy the rest of your evening. In this news update, more injured soldiers arrive from the DRC and concern over Africa's vulture populations. Good evening. A second plane has landed in the country with more injured South African soldiers evacuated from the DRC. 3 of the critically injured troops arrived in the country last night. 14 South African soldiers were killed in an attack by the M23 rebels in the eastern DRC last month. Ditabo Suzetsi reports.
It is not clear how many